Chapter 365. Long Sky's entire arm was over 3 meters long when fully extended. It was densely covered with black dragon scales. At first glance, it looked no different from real dragon scales. The moment Nye Tian saw the arm, he was dumbfounded. He could not believe his eyes. Damn! Saber dragon arm. It's definitely the legendary saber dragon arm. Corpse Lord exclaimed from the chaotic original coffin. It's really the saber dragon arm. Nye Tian finally came to his senses. The shock on his face did not diminish. At this moment, he finally understood why Long Sky's left arm could release such a terrifying aura. It was the legendary saber dragon arm. The saber dragon arm, Qilin arm, silver wolf arm, and 8 desolate ghost bone were known as the 4 great mysterious arms. Legend had it that it had the power to split the heavens and earth. In the history of the celestial realm, there was once a saber dragon arm martial artist. Legend had it that this person once fought against the 9 emperors of the celestial realm. Although he was defeated by the 9 emperors and died with hatred, he became a legend of the celestial realm. It was said that there were 9 dragon seals in the saber dragon arm martial artist. Opening the first dragon seal would awaken the power of 1 dragon. Opening the second would awaken the power of 10 dragons. The third would awaken the power of 100 dragons. The fourth would awaken the power of 1,000 dragons, and so on. Moreover, when the dragon seal was opened, the saber dragon arm martial artist's body would produce pure dragon energy. When the dragon energy accumulated to a certain level, the martial artist would be able to transform into a dragon and possess the true power of a divine dragon. The dragon form of the saber dragon arm martial artist was of course incomparable to Dongfeng Du's divine dragon form. The former was tens of thousands of times stronger than the latter. Nye Tian had never imagined that he would meet a saber dragon arm martial artist in the 3,000 lesser worlds. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. At this moment, he had an idea about Long Sky's saber dragon arm martial artist. When Long Sky's saber dragon arm martial artist appeared, everyone was shocked. Just you wait. I will make you all even more shocked. Long Sky's lips curled into a smile. He raised his head to look at Tong Fu and roared, "Saber dragon's fury, dragon raising the sky." Boom! The blade dragon arm suddenly blasted out. The huge dragon claw clenched into a dragon fist against the sky. The sky actually burst with dazzling flames. The blade dragon arm brought about a fierce astral wind. The stage was actually unable to withstand this astral wind and was forcefully swept up. The stage used for the top 8 battles was specially reinforced and had the support of a rank 3 spiritual array. Even so, it was still unable to withstand the astonishing power of the blade dragon arm. Tong Fu was in the air, but he could already feel the gust of astral energy rushing towards him, and his heart immediately trembled. But at this moment, he had no other way out and could only charge forward. If he were to stop now, he would absolutely be courting death. In mid-air, the distance between the blade dragon arm and the hammer of destruction was getting closer and closer. 10 meters, 8 meters, 5 meters, everyone tensed up at this moment. Bang! The most powerful collision was actually a muffled explosion. Everyone immediately felt their bodies shake, and their ears were about to explode. Tong Fu's hammer of destruction and Dragon Sky's evil dragon arm were both extremely powerful. The collision between the two was an absolute collision of strength against strength. There was no trick at all. In a battle of absolute strength, the stronger one would win. It was that simple. Crack! A crisp cracking sound rang out, and a crack appeared on Tong Fu's hammer of destruction. The hammer of destruction, a rank 8 legendary spirit, and Tong Fu's true Yuan Qi was enough to withstand the fierce attack of a true Yuan level 5 martial artist, but could not withstand a punch from the blade dragon arm. What a powerful force. Everyone's expressions changed simultaneously. Zhang Xiaoi thought that the power of Tong Fu's hammer was definitely more than the power of 1 dragon. The strength of 1 dragon was an unimaginable power for any martial artist below the 5th stage of the true element realm. In terms of the power of this hammer, even Ye Tan, Rui, Qinyu, Zhang Xiaoi, and the others would find it difficult to withstand it. Unfortunately, Tong Fu's opponent was Dragon Sky, the Dragon Sky with the Blade Dragon arm. The Blade Dragon arm could be said to be the natural enemy of all fierce martial artists. It was almost impossible to suppress the dragon arm in terms of strength. Bang! Followed by a loud explosion. The hammer of destruction was directly bombarded and flew up into the sky. Tong Fu was sent flying along with the hammer of destruction. Not good, Nie Tian screamed, and immediately a pair of proud sword wings appeared on his back. He fiercely stomped his feet, and his figure rose from the ground and flew out. Fu! At the same time, Gu Yi's wail came from the high platform. Nie Tian rushed up and finally caught Tong Fu. Wild Yuan Qi gushed out from his palm and directly into the latter's body. Thump! Nie Tian and Tong Fu landed firmly on the ground. Fu! Nie Tian looked at the bloody Tong Fu in his arms, and his heart ached. Tong Fu was the son of Nie Tian's disciple, Tong Liao. If Nie Tian had not been killed by Emperor Dainite and his daughter, Tong Liao would not have been implicated, and Tong Fu would not have been stranded in the 3,000 small worlds. Thinking of this, the grief in Nie Tian's heart deepened, and he frantically poured Yuan Qi into Tong Fu's body. But Tong Fu did not move, and the blood in his body was rapidly decreasing, and his life force was becoming weaker and weaker. Wake up! I won't allow you to die. Nie Tian bellowed, and all the Yuan Qi in his body gushed out, but Tong Fu still did not have the slightest reaction. Fu! At this time, Gu Yi directly jumped down from the high platform. His old body did not stand firmly, and he fell down, rolling on the ground. But he immediately got up and rushed towards Tong Fu. If you take a punch from my Blade Dragon arm, you will die without a doubt. On the stage, Dragon Sky's cold voice sounded. Nie Tian did not care about Dragon Sky, and continued to pour Yuan Qi into Tong Fu. At this time, Gu Yi almost crawled over. The spatial ring on his hand shook, and hundreds and thousands of spirit dawn gushed out. Immediately, the rich smell of spirit dawn spread out, and the people outside the arena could not help but raise their noses, desperately sniffing. Quick, quick! Feed him spirit dawn! Gu Yi grabbed a handful of spirit dawn, his hands trembling. Nie Tian knew that eating spirit dawn at this time was useless, but he did not give up. He randomly grabbed a handful of spirit dawn and desperately stuffed them into Tong Fu's mouth. Unfortunately, there was no effect at all. Master, let me. Just as Nie Tian was on the verge of despair, Corpse Demon Lord suddenly spoke from inside the chaotic original coffin. Nie Tian did not answer, and directly released Corpse Demon Lord. The spirit-devouring rat appeared, and from its mouth, it breathed out a cloud of blood qi, and then immediately entered Tong Fu's body. Puff! In the next moment, Tong Fu's body suddenly trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of black blood, and then miraculously came back to life. Fu! Nie Tian and Gu Yi were extremely excited and shouted at the same time. Big brother, Mr. Nie. Tong Fu slightly opened his eyes, and seeing Nie Tian and Gu Yi, he shouted with difficulty. Chapter 366. Under the impact of the spirit-devouring rat's blood qi, Tong Fu managed to survive. Corpse Luo Demon Monarch returned to the chaotic original coffin. His already small body shrunk even further. Nie Tian naturally knew that the spirit-devouring rat's shrunken body meant that it was weaker. The Corpse Lord had sacrificed his own strength to save Tong Fu. He did this to gain Nie Tian's approval so that he could break the blood contract sooner. On the arena, Long Sky frowned when he saw that Tong Fu had miraculously come back to life. He was clearly unhappy. Nie Tian turned back to look at him. The killing intent in his eyes was so thick it was almost tangible. Nie Tian already had thoughts about the Blade Dragon arm. Now, it was even more necessary for him to turn his thoughts into action. Tong Fu was defeated in the quarterfinals. Long Sky advanced to the semifinals. Dragon Blood Martial Meeting, quarterfinals, second match, Nie Tian versus Zhang Xiaoi. It was Nie Tian's turn to fight. His opponent was Zhang Xiaoi. Nie Tian could tell that Zhang Xiaoi was the weakest in the quarterfinals. He only had the strength of a giant soul realm. Even though he had the battle cloud tyrant body, he could not unleash its full power. If Zhang Xiaoyi's strength increased by another level to the true energy realm, he would definitely be more terrifying than Tong Fu. He might even have the strength to fight Long Sky with a blade dragon arm. It was a pity that he was only a giant soul realm. Without true Yuan, it would be difficult for him to fight Tong Fu and the rest. Nietian City Lord, I did not expect that my opponent would be you. Zhang Xiaoyi stepped onto the arena at almost the same time as Nietian. He looked at the latter and smiled faintly. Actually, Zhang Xiaoyi already had a plan. If he met Tang Xiao or Mo Shi, he would admit defeat. If he met anyone else, he would try to fight. There were too many experts in this Dragon Blood Martial meeting, far exceeding Zhang Xiaoyi's expectations. Hence, he set his sights lower. To be able to see one's own strength clearly was a form of wisdom. Nietian was strong, but in Zhang Xiaoyi's eyes, he was not on par with Mo Shi and Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao's strength was there for all to see. He was at the second level of true element, and he was the strongest person in this martial meeting. On the other hand, Mo Shi's strength was strange and unfathomable. His speed that was faster than the blink of an eye and his merciless method of killing were sufficient to cause others to feel fearful. I also did not expect that you would be my opponent. Nietian smiled faintly. Do you have confidence in your battle cloud tyrant body? What do you mean? Xiaoyi paused. With a smile, Nietian said, there's no need for a life or death duel between us. Why don't we settle this with a single punch? Oh, Zhang Xiaoyi was intrigued. I wonder how City Lord Nietian is going to decide the outcome of the battle with a single punch? Nietian smiled, a cunning look flashing across his eyes as he said, let's have a competition of absolute strength. Whoever is stronger will win. What do you think? Cloud Xiaoyi said. Xiaoyi Stone. Xietian, Xiaotian, Nietian wanted to use the Heaven and Earth Stone to determine the winner. One punch each. Whoever had more strength would be the winner. After the battle between Xiaoyi and Duanwu Lu, Nietian did not want to hurt the former. Hence, he thought of this idea. After the battle between Xiaoyi and Duanwu Lu, the two of them had been fighting fiercely. Nietian really didn't want to hurt Xiaoyi, so he thought of this idea. Xiaoyi was very confident in his battle cloud tyrant body. He would not be at a disadvantage if they competed in strength. Since both agreed, the judge could not say anything. Nietian City Tyrant, you first? Xiaoyi was a little sly. He let Nietian go first. All right. Nietian smiled faintly, not declining. The other martial artists crowded around, wanted to see how strong Nietian's hands were. On the high platform, Duanmu, Bai, Elderly, and the rest were also interested. They all stood up. During the pre-selection, Nietian had been the first to take the test. He had left a half-meter deep fist mark on the Heaven and Earth Stone with a single punch. At that time, Duanmu Bai had been extremely shocked. At this moment, Duanmu Bai really wanted to know how terrifying Nietian was. Nietian came before the Heaven and Earth Stone, and his lips twitched. He thought to himself, my raw star stone has the power of 640,000 stars. The absolute strength in my hands is 25 million kilograms. That is the power of half a dragon. If I add my martial technique, I can basically hit out 50 million kilograms of force. That is the power of one dragon. At the thought of this, Nietian glanced at Zhang Xiaoyi and thought to himself, this fellow has the battle cloud overlord physique, and his pure physical strength is also half a dragon's strength. If he were to add in his martial techniques, he would probably have the strength of one dragon. Looks like I have to put in a lot of effort this time. Nietian City Tyrant, let's begin. Xiaoyi saw that Nietian did not start and urged. Okay. Nietian smiled faintly and no longer hesitated. He raised his arm and Yuan power surged out. Even his fist seemed to expand. War God Imperial Fist. Nietian shouted and punched. At the same time, one of the star souls on the star soul steel sensed it and turned into pure energy. Boom! When Nietian punched out, a layer of soil flew up from the ground. A deep ravine appeared under his feet. A huge spear formed, and on the tip of the spear, there was a huge shadow of a fist. Bang! With a muffled sound, the huge heaven and earth stone shook violently. Immediately, a 1.5-meter deep depression appeared. In the center of the depression, there was a clear fist mark. Seeing the fist imprint on the Chinquin stone, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes wide open. Many of them were participants of the Dragon Blood Martial gathering and had personally attacked the Heaven and Earth Stone. Naturally, they knew how difficult it was to leave a fist mark on the Heaven and Earth Stone. However, Nietian was able to leave a 1.5-meter deep fist mark in such a relaxed manner, which was simply too inconceivable. 1.5 meter, 1.5 dragon strength. On the high platform, Duanmu Bai stood up. He had guessed that Nietian's limit should be 1 dragon strength, but now it seemed that he had underestimated Nietian. Old Li also stood up and suddenly said, I think Nietian City Tyrant has not used his full strength. Not used his full strength? Duanmu Bai was completely dumbfounded and speechless. Old Li's guess was right. Nietian had not used his full strength, because his punch just now was the War God Imperial Fist combined with the Second-Order Star Soul, Earth Spear. He still had a Third-Order Star Soul in his body that he had not used. The Star Soul contained the power of the stars. It was the purest form of energy, and it was the best to attack the Heaven and Earth Stone. If he had used a Third-Order Star Soul, the fist mark on the Heaven and Earth Stone would have been several times deeper. Nietian nodded slightly, expressing his satisfaction. He turned to Zhang Xiaoi, who had not yet reacted, and said, Brother Xiaoi, it's your turn. Only then did Zhang Xiaoi react. He swallowed hard, and even his body trembled slightly. He said, Nietian City Lord, I admit defeat. Nietian did not expect that he would admit defeat directly. Zhang Xiaoi naturally had his own considerations. His battle cloud tyrant body, combined with his martial techniques, was 1 dragon strength. It was impossible for him to punch out a 1.5-meter fist mark. Chapter 367. In the second match of the quarterfinals, Nietian won without any bloodshed and successfully advanced to the next round. Dragon Blood Martial Meet, quarterfinals, third match, Rui Qinyu versus Mo10. The third match immediately began. Hearing the name of the third match, Nietian could not help but frown. Rui Qinyu's strength was very strong, already at the true energy boundary second stage, but against Mo10, it seemed a little difficult. Mo10's strength was not strong, but he had the demon fire body. The power of the Doomsday Flame was overbearing, and coupled with that strange speed, it was even more troublesome. Nietian looked at Rui Qinyu, and just as he was about to speak, the latter had already leapt up and appeared on the arena. At the same time, Mo10's figure also landed on the arena. Looking at Rui Qinyu in front of him, he showed a hint of surprise and said, Your eyes, I want them. Mo10 had long noticed Rui Qinyu's existence, and he had long known that her eyes were one of the 10 congenital great pupils, the rainbow pupils. Hearing Mo10's words, Nietian's heart sank. The spectators outside the arena were also on tenterhooks. The way Mo10 killed just now was too strange and completely unreasonable. Rui Qinyu's expression was cold, like a block of ice. She did not pay attention to Mo10, but glanced at Nietian and said lightly, Pay attention. Look at his movement skill. Nietian's pupils shrank slightly. He did not expect that Rui Qinyu would fight Mo10 on the arena just to let him see Mo10's flaws. Unfortunately, her plan was mostly in vain. Mo10's speed was too fast, and even Gu-Yi could not see through it. So how could Nietian see through it? Was this not a joke? At this moment, Mo10's figure moved. In just a flash, he directly turned into a fireball, and his figure could not be seen at all. His speed was too fast, and when he moved, it was like a line of fire. In the eyes of others, Mo10's speed was so fast that it was impossible to perceive, but in Rui Qinyu's eyes, his figure was very clear. With the rainbow pupils, Rui Qinyu could see that Mo10's whole body was ignited in a strange flame, and his whole body was like a fireball that contained an extremely terrifying power. Even iron and ice would meld upon contact. If one touched MO10, they would definitely turn into a pile of charcoal in the blink of an eye. Magical 10's figure flickered a few times. It was obvious that he was trying to interfere with Thousand Leaves' observation. At a certain moment, his figure suddenly stopped, and the flames on his body suddenly soared. A wave of flames shot out towards rainy Thousand Leaves. Just as the flame was about to land on Rui Qinyu, a group of green Bodhi leaves appeared and formed a green net, blocking the path of the flame. Puffed. Just as the flame was about to land on Rui Qinyu, a group of green Bodhi leaves appeared and formed a green net, blocking the path of the flame. Puffed. Even so, the flame still pierced through the green net. Rui Qinyu turned slightly, and a burn wound appeared on her shoulder. Mo10's figure stopped at this moment, and he looked at Rui Qinyu with a strange expression. He then smiled and said, "I almost forgot. Your eyes can perceive everything. This speed is nothing to you." Rui Qinyu's face was expressionless, and she did not look at the wound on her shoulder. All her attention was on Mo10, and she did not dare to relax for even a moment. Mo10's figure flashed again, and a moment later, several more burn wounds appeared on Rui Qinyu's body. Nietian watched on nervously from below. However, at this time, he was not observing Mo10's movement techniques. Instead, he was assessing Mo10's strength. Given Mo10's speed, unless Nietian could borrow Rui Qinyu's 9-color eyes, he would not be able to see Mo10's movements clearly. Hence, at this moment, Nietian had a thought that made him break out in cold sweat. Could he just let the 9-level Chaos Beast swallow Mo10? It was not that Nietian had never swallowed a demonic flame before. Previously, in the Burial Cloud Abyss, he had used the Primal Chaos Original Coffin to swallow the Doomsday Flame's clone, Scarlet Flame Lai Shinzi. Because of this, he had also awakened the Primal Chaos Origin Embryo. However, that was when the demonic flame did not have a physical body. Now, that Mo10 had a physical body. If he swallowed it directly, he would be courting death. If Mo10 entered the 9-level Chaos Beast body, he would have to rip the latter's stomach open. After thinking for a long time, Nietian finally decided that if he wanted to swallow Mo10, he would have to destroy his physical body first. Once Mo10 lost his physical body, he would revert to his original demonic flame form, and he would be able to swallow it directly. However, even under such circumstances, there was a huge risk. When Nietian had swallowed Scarlet Flame Lai Shinzi forcefully, the Primal Chaos Original Coffin had nearly exploded. If the 9-level Chaos Beast can withstand the impact of the heavenly ice-cold fragrance, it should be able to swallow the Doomsday Flame as well, Nietian thought to himself. However, it was still too early to think about this, and he was starting to fantasize. At this time, Rui Qinyu, who had been taking a beating on the arena, suddenly moved. The Thousand Leaves mystic jade Bodhi spirit appeared behind her. It shook violently, and countless green leaves joined together to form a huge palm, which slapped directly at Mo10. Mo10 was slightly stunned. Obviously, he had not expected Rui Qinyu to counterattack at this time. He laughed coldly and growled in a low voice. "You have a death wish." The flames on Mo10's body suddenly became more intense. In an instant, a fireball surged out and whistled. PFFF. The fireball rushed out, pierced through the huge green palm, and headed straight for Rui Qinyu. However, at this time, a pair of leaves formed a pair of wings behind Rui Qinyu. She was already in midair. Bang! The huge green palm's attack range was too wide, and it covered almost the entire arena. Mo10 had nowhere to retreat, and he was hit by the huge palm. He took a few steps back, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was injured. For the first time, someone on the arena was not killed by Mo10. Instead, Mo10 had injured him. At the same time, Rui Qinyu's figure fell from the sky. She landed below the arena and said calmly, "I lost." Seeing Raindrop Qinya descend from the arena, Nietian's heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally relaxed. Although Rui Qinyu was seriously injured, and there were countless burns on her body, they were not serious injuries. With her strength, she could recover in a few days. Mo10 steadied himself. He looked at Rui Qinyu with anger in his eyes, but there was nothing he could do. Although Mo10 had won, he had failed to kill Rui Qinyu, nor had he obtained the 9 colored pupils. He had even been injured, which was unacceptable to him. Are you all right? Nie Tian didn't care whether Mo10 could accept it or not. He walked to Rui Qinyu and asked softly. Rui Qinyu didn't answer his question. Instead, she asked, "Did you see his movement clearly?" Nie Tian was speechless. He nodded and said, "Yes, I saw it clearly." Chapter 368. The third round ended with Mo Shi's victory. He entered the top 4 in a depressed mood. Next was the last round of the top 8. There were only 2 people left, Tang Xiao and Tang 13. Both of them were descendants of the Tang clan, and both possessed the ghost eye. Plus, they hated each other. This round was destined to be a battle of life and death. Bang! Bang! Tang Xiao and Tang 13 landed on the stage at the same time. They stared at each other angrily. Their desire to fight was on the verge of exploding. At the same time, outside of the battlefield, cheese that were originally hidden began to vibrate and became nervous. These 4 were the secret guards of the Tang family who were secretly protecting Tang Xiao and Tang 13. 2 followed Tang Xiao and 2 followed Tang 13. At this moment, the 4 of them were highly nervous. Their hearts were in their throats, afraid that Tang Xiao and Tang 13 would fight to the death. Because the secret guards had their own rules. If they couldn't protect their master, they would be buried with him. Great! Tang Xiao was secretly happy. His pair of eyes stared coldly at Tang 13. To be able to meet Tang 13 in this round, Tang Xiao felt like he had fallen into a honeypot. He hated Tang 13 to the core. This was the best chance to kill him, and he couldn't miss it. Even though he knew that the clan leader loved Tang 13, Tang Xiao wasn't afraid. After all, he was a direct descendant of the Tang clan. If he really killed Tang 13, he could just say that it was an accident on the stage. The clan leader wouldn't make him pay for Tang 13's death. My 13th brother, there are no brothers on the battlefield. If you don't want to die, surrender and kowtow to me 3 times. As your 3rd brother, I will let you go. How about it? Tang Xiao wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he spoke in a strange tone. Is that so? Tang 13 smiled cold and said in a low voice, Tang 13 can afford to lose and can afford to die. To be honest, before the dragon blood martial art began, he did think that if he met Tang Xiao, he would surrender. But now, not only would he not surrender, he would take his opponent's life. Very good. That's what I wanted to hear. Tang Xiao shouted cold. His entire body's qi shot up to the sky. He had never thought that one day he would have a life and death battle with this strange 13th brother on the martial arena. All this time, Tang Xiao had treated Tang 13 like trash, even though Tang Hao had personally identified her as the strongest ghost eye in the Tang family in 100 years. How strong could a ghost eye that was unwilling to open its eyes be? But Tang Xiao had never imagined that the strongest ghost eye would shock the world the moment it opened. In just a year's time, he had actually opened the ghost eye to the double-edged ghost eye. It was simply unbelievable. Therefore, if he didn't deal with his 13th brother, whom he had always treated as trash, he would definitely step on him in the future. Now that there was a chance to kill Tang 13, how could Tang Xiao let it go? This battle, he was determined to win. Tang 13. He had to kill them. Tang Xiao's body emitted an endless amount of killer's intent. It was almost tangible as it moved towards Tang 13. Tang 13, I will let you know how big the gap between us is. Tang Xiao roared. His entire body's qi once again rose to an extreme height. Tang 13's face was calm. She said cold, Tang Xiao, I will also let you know how terrifying the double-edged ghost eye is. It is not something you can imagine. Is that so? Tang Xiao laughed coldly. His eyes were filled with extreme disdain. Everyone said that the ghost eye was monstrous, but Tang Xiao, who had cultivated a ghost blade and opened the single-edged ghost eye, felt that the ghost eye was just so. Other than making his perception and observation far better than normal people, it did not have much use. He had opened the ghost eye when he was 10 years old. It had been almost 10 years since then, but it was still a single-edged ghost eye. He could only use one special ability, and it was very weak. He usually did not even bother using it. Therefore, Tang Xiao still did not understand why, when people mentioned Tang Hao, the first thing that came to mind was the ghost eye. In his eyes, the ghost eye was not that powerful. At least, it was not as scary as the legends said. Of course, Tang Xiao's understanding of the ghost eye was completely wrong. The ghost eye was not powerful on him. That was because he was too stupid. He could not unleash the full power of the ghost eye. Tang Xiao's aura became stronger and stronger. A giant axe appeared behind him. It emitted the aura of fire. For the first time, Tang Xiao used the giant spirit true body. It seemed like this time, he had made up his mind to kill Tang 13 in one strike. Tang Xiao knew that there were Tang family shadow guards outside the arena. If the two of them fought to the death, the Tang family shadow guards would definitely intervene. Therefore, he only had one chance to attack. This time, he would not allow any accidents. Third young master, stop. As expected, when Tang Xiao's giant spirit true body appeared, panic voices came from outside the arena. Multiple shadows rose from the ground at the same time. However, it was too late. Pure soul cleave ghost axe mountain splitting strike. Tang Xiao let out a deep roar. The giant axe in the air came crashing down. It was so powerful that it had the power to split a mountain. In this life-threatening moment, Tang 13 was like a rock, not moving an inch. Tang 13 died. Seeing that Tang 13 didn't move, Tang Xiao thought he had given up. He let out a maniacal laugh. His entire face twisted. Tang Xiao's attack. Not only did he use the giant spirit true body, but he also used his qi. On top of that, he used the heaven-ranked martial technique. Even a warrior of the third level of the true energy realm would not be able to block this attack. Everyone stared at Tang 13. Their hearts were filled with shock and questions. Is he crazy? He's not moving at all. Is he trying to block this attack with his body? Forget about Tang 13's martial body being unable to block this attack. Even Zhang Xiaoyi's battle cloud tyrant body, or Tong Fu's hammer of destruction, would not be able to block this attack. Out of all the participants, the only one who could block this attack with their body was Long Sky's dragon arm. Just as the pure soul cleave ghost axe was about to land, Tang 13's lips curled up into a mocking smile. His pair of ghostly eyes suddenly closed and opened again. Two ghostly blades appeared in each of his eyes. Ghostly blade, red moon reverse strike. Tang 13 whispered. Whoosh! Immediately, a blinding red light pierced through the air and sliced through the air. It was suffocating. At this moment, everyone present felt a sudden burning pain in their eyes, and their hearts trembled inexplicably. In the next second, the blinding red light shot through the sky and into the clouds. The power of heaven and earth changed. Pooh! A crisp sound rang out. The pure soul cleave ghost axe was sliced in half. Chapter 369. The sudden turn of events caused everyone to widen their eyes in shock. Their breathing stopped, their expressions froze, and everything fell into a dead silence. Only Tang Xiao, who was still in the air, felt a warm and sticky liquid spurt out from his neck. Both his hands subconsciously reached for his neck. The moment his hands touched his neck, a pong sound rang out. Tang Xiao's head flew into the air. His eyes widened in shock and despair. Pong! Tang Xiao's body slammed onto the ground. It was a headless corpse. The shocking scene caused the entire arena to fall into a deathly silence. Everyone's expressions were petrified. Not a single sound could be heard. All they could hear was each other's racing heartbeats. The power of the ghost eye. After a long time, Nietian took a deep breath and closed his chapped lips. He subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He couldn't think of any words to describe the shock in his heart at that moment. Nietian knew how powerful the ghost eye was. but he didn't think that Tang 13's ghost I had already grown to such a terrifying level. Based on the power of his eyes, it wouldn't be long before the double-edged ghost I would become the triple-edged ghost I. Nie Tian stared at Tang 13. More accurately, he stared at Tang 13's eyes. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. Nie Tian couldn't be sure. If he were to fight against Tang 13, would he be able to block an attack from the ghost eye? If Nie Tian used his third-rank astral soul, he would definitely be able to kill Tang 13. But did he know that Tang 13's ghost I was so monstrous? Therefore, no matter when, underestimating your opponent is the same as humiliating yourself. Tang 13's expression was complicated. His face was as white as paper, and tears of blood flowed from his eyes. It was obvious that using the ghost I was too much of a burden on Tang 13. Under the immense power of his eyes couldn't take it anymore. Because of this, it was impossible for Tang 13 to continue in the next round. Third Master. After a long time, the deathly silence was broken by two cries. Two silhouettes flew out and appeared beside Tang Zhao's corpse. At the same time, two other silhouettes appeared beside Tang 13. These four figures were the Tang clan's 4 dark guards. The two bodyguards beside Tang Zhao glared at Tang 13 with anger in their eyes. The two bodyguards next to Tang 13 were obviously protecting her, afraid that the other two would do anything. Tang Zhao was dead. According to the rules of the Dark Guards, the two people responsible for protecting him had to die as well. Pooh! Tang 13 took a step forward and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her expression softened a lot. She said to the two bodyguards beside Tang Zhao, "I will personally explain Tang Zhao's death to the leader. Don't worry, I will not drag you into this." "Thank you, 13th young master." The two dark guards were stunned for a moment before the anger in their eyes turned into gratitude. They quickly knelt down. "Yes." Tang 13 nodded her head and walked down the stage. Arriving beside Nie Tian, she squeezed out a smile and said, "Nie Tian, my dragon blood martial gathering ends here. I have to go back. I will wait for you at Sumeru's spiritual capital." "Yes." Nie Tian stared at the young man whose eyes were bleeding. He knew that he had to go back to Sumeru's spiritual capital. His heart felt strange. Just as Tang 13 was about to turn around, something occurred to her. She took out a golden medallion and tossed it to Nie Tian. "If you ever come to Sumi spiritual capital, take this medallion to me. I'm sure you'll find me." Nie Tian took the token. Seeing the word Tang carved on the front and the word Inner carved on the back, he immediately understood that this was the Tang clan's token for the inner court. 13th young master, this. One of the bodyguards felt that Tang 13's action of giving the token to Nie Tian was inappropriate. He wanted to say something, but was stopped by Tang 13. "This is the Tang clan's token for the inner court. Only the Tang clan's inner court elders and above can have it." Tang 13 forced a smile and said, "I think you will need it in the future." Nie Tian smiled bitterly. "Let's hope not." Tang 13 didn't linger and left with the Tang clan's bodyguards. "Nie Tian, I am taking Tang Yu with me. Thank you for helping me find her." Tang 13 walked a dozen meters away and raised one hand high in the air. She spoke to Nie Tian through telepathy. With a faint smile, Nie Tian watched Tang 13 leave. "You've only just remembered to thank me?" He still remembered that when Tang 13 came to find him last night to thank him, she giggled the whole night. On the battlefield, outside the battlefield, after Tang 13's silhouette completely disappeared, everyone finally reacted. "I've heard that the Tang clan's ghost eye is powerful. I didn't think it was this powerful. This is insane. Yeah, this is completely unreasonable. In the future, I will definitely not fight with anyone with ghost eye." "You want to fight, but do you have the right?" Everyone discussed excitedly. The shock in their hearts couldn't be calmed down. On the high platform, a few people also looked in the direction Tang 13 and the others disappeared. They couldn't calm down. "I've long heard that the Tang clan's ghost eye is powerful. I didn't think it was this terrifying." Lu Yankai took a deep breath. His voice was trembling. Next to him, Zhao Kuo also clicked his tongue. "The ghost eye is ruthless. No wonder the Tang clan is the leader of the 4 aristocratic families. The ghost eye of a prodigy is already so terrifying. Tang Hao's ghost eye is unbeatable. The Tang clan is powerful. At this time, Gu Yi had already left with Tong Fu. If he had seen the scene of Tang 13 killing Tang Xiao, he would have cursed again. After a long time, the commotion caused by the battle between the two Tang brothers finally died down. The Dragon Blood martial meet continued. The battle of the top four had now become the top three. The four judges discussed for a while and decided to draw lots. A moment later, 3 long lots were prepared. Nie Tian, Long Sky, and Mo Shi stepped forward and prepared to draw lots. Mo Shi was the first to walk forward. He drew a lot. At the end of the lot was a single word, fight. When Nie Tian and Long Sky saw the word fight, they exhaled simultaneously. If Mo Shi had drawn no fight, it would have been a battle between Nie Tian and Long Sky. Nie Tian would have advanced. Long Sky and Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony. They both drew a long lot at the same time. Long Sky looked at the word on the lot and could not help but laugh sinisterly. Nie Tian saw Long Sky's expression and immediately knew the result of his lot. He glanced at it. It was indeed fight. Mo Shi and Nie Tian drew fight. This meant that they would have to fight, and Long Sky would advance. Apart from being powerful, the people of the Heaven Burial Meet are also this lucky? Nie Tian glanced at Long Sky. The corner of his mouth twitched. He laughed bitterly in his heart. In a martial meet of life and death, strength was the most important. Sometimes, luck was equally important. Dragon Blood Martial Meet, Semifinals, Nie Tian versus Mo Shi. Then, the judge announced loudly. In the next moment, Nie Tian and Mo Shi's figures appeared on the stage at the same time. An earth-shattering battle was about to begin. Chapter 370. As soon as Nie Tian and Mo Shi appeared on the arena, the crowd cheered loudly. Nie Tian was now an influential figure in the Nanshan region and even in the 3,000 small worlds. Mo Shi's strength was so strange that it sent chills down people's spines. The battle between the two of them was very interesting. On the high platform, Duanmu, Bai Li, Elder Li, and the others felt their hearts tighten. Their eyes were fixed on the arena. They knew how terrifying Mo Shi was. With that kind of speed, unless a warrior of the Spirit Will realm activated the Spirit Will space, it would be difficult to restrain him. At this moment, Nie Yuro suddenly walked over and gently pulled on Duanmu by Li's sleeve. With a serious expression, she said, "Uncle, don't worry. My brother Nie Tian will definitely be fine." Duanmu Bai Li and Elder Li were speechless. This little girl was very confident in Nie Tian. On the arena, Mo Shi and Nie Tian stood opposite each other. Nie Tian, you are the one who forced me out of the burial cloud abyss. Mo Shi's crimson eyes were ice-cold, merciless, and completely devoid of any emotion as he looked Nie Tian in the eye. So what if I am? The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curled up. He actually revealed a mocking smile. If I am, then you must die, Mo Shi replied coldly. His extreme murderous intent condensed into a terrifying aura of death that filled the space within a few hundred meters. There are many people who want to kill me. Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Nie Tian stopped smiling and released his aura. He could feel that as Mo Shi's aura filled the air on the arena seemed to have become sticky. It even made it difficult for him to breathe. He knew how powerful Mo Shi was. He shouldn't be careless. The Star Soul tablet in the chaotic original coffin was already on standby. It could explode with its strongest power in an instant. You have a death wish. Mo Shi roared. His strange red eyes suddenly shot out a beam of red light that turned into dots of red light that filled the entire arena. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, the countless red lights floating in the air suddenly expanded, igniting the prairie into countless fireballs. Immediately, the entire martial arts arena soared into the sky, directly turning into a sea of fire. What the? Everyone exclaimed in shock. At this moment, the martial stage was covered in flames, and it was impossible to see anyone. Scorching waves of flames surged, and an oppressive aura was emitted, causing people to be unable to sense any aura. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They didn't know what had happened on the arena, and they didn't even know if Nietian was dead or alive. Nietian, is this all you've got? You can't even withstand my ordinary flames? Emosher's voice sounded cold and extremely arrogant. Beautiful sister, is Brother Nietian okay? At this moment, Rui Chinyu was on a high platform. Beside her, Neyuro's delicate face was twisted into a mess as she asked nervously. Don't worry, Nietian is fine. It was rare that Rui Chinyu wasn't so cold as she said softly. Others couldn't see the situation on the martial arts arena clearly, but Rui Chinyu's 9 color pupils could see everything clearly. 9 color pupils could even see through a rank 5 illusion at a glance. How could a small sea of fire stop Rui Chinyu's powerful perception? Rui Chinyu could feel that the aura of Mo Shi's entire body was many times stronger than when he was fighting against her previously. It was obvious that when Mo Shi fought against Rui Chinyu previously, because he wanted to obtain the 9 color pupils, he had many misgivings and didn't dare to use his full strength. But when facing Nietian, he didn't have any misgivings at all. He completely gave it his all, no longer holding anything back. From afar, Rui Chinyu could see that although Nietian was in the middle of the sea of fire, his entire body was enveloped by a green vine armor. Although the demonic flames were scorching hot, they didn't harm Nietian at all. So it turned out that before the sea of fire, Nietian had used a second-ranked astral soul, the extreme wood armor. Luckily, the extreme wood armor is a defensive-type astral soul, and it seems to have a suppressive effect against the demonic flames. If not, I would really be burnt to ashes. Nietian rejoiced in his heart. At this moment, if he didn't have the extreme wood armor astral soul, he really wouldn't know how to deal with the situation in front of him. However, although the extreme wood armor astral soul could withstand the demonic flames, it was also slowly withering away. If Mo Shi continued to burn like this, the extreme wood armor astral soul would collapse sooner or later. At this moment, Mo Shi seemed to have discovered something as he frowned, after which the sea of fire was directly absorbed by him, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Not bad. After the sea of flames disappeared, Nietian let out a sigh of relief. His ivy armor spread out, and he looked like a massive treant standing behind him. You want to kill me with just these skills? Although he was shocked in his heart, Nietian put on a very relaxed expression on his face. He smiled faintly and mockingly. Very good, you actually managed to block my burning doomsday. Looks like my decision to escape was a very wise one. Mo Shi smiled coldly. He was secretly shocked by Nietian's strength, but the killing intent in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Nietian faintly smiled and said, "But you chose to appear at the Dragon Blood Martial Gathering. This is an extremely foolish choice." Nietian, I like your arrogance very much, he said. Mo Shi's crimson eyes flashed with cold, killing intent. In the next moment, his silhouette flickered, transforming into a line of fire. His voice rang out in the air, as if it came from all directions. Nietian, to be so insolent in front of me, you are seeking your own death. Nietian's heart jumped. He could not see Mo Shi's silhouette clearly, only the flashes of fire that flickered in front of him. Bang! 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 Immediately after, several fireballs flew over and struck the supreme wood armor. The ivy armor began to fall off piece by piece. But what was more terrifying was that the demonic fire's aura penetrated the supreme wood armor and invaded Nietian's body. Nietian instantly felt his chest tighten, and his breathing became uneven. His face turned red. Master, this guy is the Doomsday Flame? Inside the chaotic original coffin, Demon Lord Corpse Luo sensed that the demonic fire's aura was about to seep into the chaotic original coffin, and he screamed in fear. Of course, Nietian bellowed furiously. He almost cursed out loud. Did you just find out? What the F***CK? Demon Lord Corpse Luo cursed, and he exclaimed, The 13th demonic fire on the demonic fire ranking has formed a human form. At this time, Nietian could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Demon Lord Corpse Luo, and he used Wakaba, flying swan steps to dodge the incoming attacks. Unfortunately, his Wakaba, flying swan steps, was extremely strange to other martial artists, but it was child's play in front of Mo Shi's speed. Bang! Bang! Immediately afterwards, Nietian was hit several times in a row. Finally, a crack appeared on his extreme wood armor. What the F***CK? Nietian was furious, and he roared, "Do I have no choice but to be beaten up?" As he roared, he no longer hesitated, and the absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand, and he swung it horizontally. A circular sword wave surged out, and instantly, sword chi overflowed in all directions. "You want to hurt me with this kind of sword chi?" Mo Shi's mocking voice was heard, and endless flames surged out of his body and directly devoured the endless sword chi. Puffed. Nietian was hit by the demonic fire again, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 371. Nietian was struck by the demonic flames. Although the Supreme Wood armor had helped him block most of the impact and the corrosive force, the demonic flames were unusually strong. They had seeped into his body through his pores and into his spiritual space. In an instant, Nietian's vital meridians were infected by the demonic flames. It was as if they were about to combust. Suddenly, a bone-piercing pain spread throughout his body. Large beads of sweat formed on Nietian's forehead. His handsome face was contorted as he resisted the extreme pain. At the same time, the demonic flames surged into the chaotic original coffin. The corpse Luo demon lord shrieked in fear and jumped into a corner. The Mirage Snow Fox's eyes reflected the scarlet demonic flames and became as red as blood. It looked extremely strange. Hiya! The 9-tier chaos beast woke up from its deep slumber. It shrieked as its eyes narrowed. A layer of light surged out of its body and swallowed the demonic flames that it surged in. Just as the 9-extremity chaos beast swallowed the demonic fire, it immediately felt that something was amiss. A pained expression appeared on its face, and its mouth opened immediately as it panted heavily. Several strange rays of light appeared on its originally scarlet body. The rays of light moved strangely under its body like small snakes. In the blink of an eye, they gathered at the top of the 9-tier Chaos Beast's head from all parts of its body. Boom! Immediately, a streak of scarlet flames shot out from the top of the 9-tier Chaos Beast's head and dissipated into the boundless chaotic space. Nietian was taken aback by what was happening in the Chaos original coffin. The 9-tier Chaos Beast swallowed the demonic flames and expelled the demonic chi within. Nietian immediately understood what was going on. He was overjoyed. Although the 9-tier Chaos Beast had looked like it was in pain when it swallowed the demonic flames, it had still managed to withstand the impact of the demonic flames. This undoubtedly meant that the 9-tier Chaos Beast could swallow the Doomsday Flames. After confirming this, Nietian forgot about the pain all over his body. A look of surprise appeared on his face. Mo Shi was stunned when he saw Nietian's reaction. He said in a cold voice, "I'm surprised that you're still able to last until now after my Doomsday Devil Flames entered your body." Mo Shi's Doomsday Demonic Flame had invaded the bodies of those cultivators, and they had turned into a pile of bones in the blink of an eye. However, the fact that Nietian was still alive made Mo Shi feel very strange. With how violent Mo Shi's Doomsday Demonic Flames were, even the true chi of a true element boundary cultivator would find it difficult to resist. So how could Nietian survive until now? "You want to kill me with just the Doomsday Demonic Flame? You're not mature enough," Nietian shouted coldly. He didn't have any scruples anymore. The Supreme Wood protective armor on his body was fully unfolded, and the sword extinguishing heavenly chop was violently thrust. Suddenly, the sword light shone brightly, and the sword light that was dozens of meters long whizzed out. The terrifying sword chi spread out, covering the space of hundreds of meters in all directions. It was majestic, like a dragon coming out of the abyss, and suddenly pressed forward. Good. Facing Nietion's aura, Emo sure didn't panic. Instead, he laughed loudly, and his battle intent surged. A black flame appeared in his palm, and the blood chi was abnormally dense. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a black spear. Nietion, you're not bad. You're worthy of me using the demonic flame edge. The black spear in Emo Shure's hand was called the demonic flame edge. It was formed from the doomsday heart of the doomsday flame. It had merged with the doomsday flame's most terrifying blood chi, and was the purest crystallization of the blood chi that had existed under the doomsday volcano for 10,000 years. When the demonic flame edge appeared, the dense blood chi covered the sky. The space within a few thousand meters was immediately filled with a suffocating smell of blood. At this moment, everyone had the illusion that their souls had been pierced. Demonic flame edge, heavenly evil ghost strike. The demonic flame edge in Emo Shure's hand spun and trembled violently. Suddenly, waves of ghostly cries could be heard. It was as if countless people were suffering from the torture of hell. That kind of heart-wrenching screams could take away one's soul. Swoosh! As the demonic flame edge whistled, it released black and red rays of light that surged towards Nietion. Boom! The sword light and the demonic flame edge collided. Nietion felt his mind tremble, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was actually sent flying backwards. Whoosh! A pair of proud sword wings immediately appeared behind his back. His body froze in midair, and his face was filled with fear. It wasn't pale, but frightening black. The primal chaos original coffin kept surging into the demonic flame. Although the nine-extremity chaos beast knew that the demonic flame was disgusting, it still swallowed it in big mouthfuls. It knew that Nietion was in a life-and-death battle. If it didn't swallow the demonic flame, its little home, the primal chaos original coffin, would probably be lost. The corpse Luo demon Monarch sniffed the demonic flame, and its small body could only tremble. It could only curl up in a corner with a phantom snow fox. As it trembled, it kept shouting, "Brother Geo, Brother Geo, Brother Geo, Brother Geo, very good." Seeing that Nietion was frozen in midair, Emo Shure laughed maniacally. A pair of wings actually appeared on his back. Emo Shure's wings were the same color as the demonic flame edge. They were black in color, like cold steel, and emitted a suffocating feeling. Emo Shure's wings shook, and his body leaped up to maintain the same level as Nietion. He laughed maniacally and said, "Nietion, I am getting more and more interested in you. I'm a little reluctant to kill you now." On the surface, Emo Shure looked incomparably arrogant, but deep down, he was very puzzled. His blood-fiend demonic flame had already invaded Nietion's body for a long time. Even a divine wheel realm expert should have been turned into ashes by now. Why was Nietion able to hold on until now? Moreover, looking at his face, it was only slightly black. It was not fatal. Emo Shure would never have dreamed that his blood-fiend demonic flame would actually be eaten by the ninth extreme Chaos Beast. At this moment, the ninth extreme Chaos Beast hated Emo Shure to death. How could he actually let him eat such a disgusting thing? Everyone on the battlefield looked up at the two people in the sky. No one expected that this battle would actually be so intense. One had to know that both Nietion and Emo Shure were only at the Giant Spirit Realm. Who would have thought that a battle between Giant Spirit Realm experts could also be so earth-shattering? Since you can't bear to kill me, then let me kill you. Nietion was full of fighting spirit. The absolute heaven/sword in his hand suddenly trembled, and a clear and intense sword mark appeared like a rooster breaking through the dawn. The sword light whizzed out, and as the sword aura swept across, countless sword shadows pressed down on Emo Shure like a storm. As the sword aura surged, the sword heart on Nietion's forehead actually expanded a little, and there were faint signs of breakthrough. At this moment, Nietion suddenly felt the 9 essence meridians in his body suddenly expand a little like 9 flood dragons entrenched in his body. "I made a breakthrough," Niet Tion exclaimed as he came to a sudden realization. He never expected that his strength would actually advance by one stage in the midst of battle. Yeah, the ninth extreme chaos beast seemed to have also sensed it. Although its face was still in pain, its huge eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Nietion immediately understood that the ninth extreme chaos beast must have swallowed the blood fiend demonic flame and turned it into endless essence force, causing it to directly break through. Chapter 372. Boom! The demonic edge swept up the dark clouds, and a mass of black gas burst out, breaking through Nietion's sword shadow array and bombarding him with tyrannical force. Nietion turned pale with fright. He activated the extreme with celestial battle armor, and a layer of sword chi surrounded his body, forming a sword shadow shield. Bang! Even so, when the dark clouds pressed down, Nietion was still blasted away, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The proud sword wings behind Nietion suddenly spread open, stirring up a fierce astral wind in midair. Only then did he manage to stabilize himself. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his face was fearless. His entire body's battle intent almost solidified, and the sword chi filled the air again. His wings whistled, and his figure turned into a shadow in the air, fearlessly stabbing towards Emo Shi's sword. Boom! In the air, Niet Tion's 9 yuan meridians were operating crazily, and at the same time, he activated the power of 1,280,000 stars. The wildest, proudest, and sharpest sword chi burst out, surging 1,000 meters away, and the surrounding space was suddenly pulled tight by the power of this sword. Sky-piercing sword. A crazy roar of anger dissipated in the fierce astral wind. This collision of swords was truly a battle of life and death. Facing Nietion's powerful attack, Emo Shi did not dodge. There was not a trace of emotion on his cold face, and the ruthlessness in his eyes was indifference to the world. Demonic will shakes the heavens. A deep roar of anger sounded like surging thunder. The wings of doomsday behind Emo Shi's back suddenly flapped, and his figure whistled out. The demonic flame edge began to release endless blood fiend power, enveloping 1,000 meters of space. The blood fiend power and the extreme sword chi clashed, and the space immediately became chaotic. A clear sword hum and a strange demonic voice sounded at the same time, mixing into an ear-piercing battle song. Emo Shi's silhouette was extremely quick. He turned into a ball of fire in the sky as his insolent voice rang out. Nietion, I never expected you to have such tyrannical strength. What exactly is there in your body that can resist the baleful blood demon flames? Nietion hovered in midair. The raging astral wind in his ears caused his blood to boil like fire. The astral energy in his body gushed out unceasingly, surging like a raging tsunami. Boundless star energy poured into the sword absolute heaven slash, turning into the most extreme sword chi, sweeping away all the evil demons. In fact, with every breath he took, the blood fiend demon flame in his 9 energy meridians would be completely absorbed, turning into a domineering sword energy. Nietion went all out with this sword strike, leaving no room for error. Doomsday flame, you'll never know what's in my body, Nietion roared. It was a different voice, but it had the same shock. At this moment, everyone looked up into the sky. The 100-meter-long sword shadow and the 100-meter-long spear tip almost destroyed the entire space. Boom! The fiercest collision suddenly rang out. The space within 1,000 meters shook violently, as if it was about to shatter. Nietion felt the energy meridians in his body shake violently, and cracks appeared on them from the powerful impact. My energy meridians, Nietion screamed, and his darkened face turned pale. At the same time, in the galaxy boundary of the 10th energy meridian, the boundary Yuan formation seemed to sense the threat and suddenly sped up. The origin star stone that connected the heavens and the earth suddenly rotated, and in an instant, An endless stream of astral energy gushed out, turning into dark golden blood that flowed in Nietion's body, merging with his original blood. As the dark golden blood flowed in, the cracks on the 9 energy meridians healed in the blink of an eye. Nietion felt the astral energy in his body increasing, becoming more and more ferocious, to the point where he was actually losing control of it. The sudden burst of power made him feel as if his body had grown taller by a few inches. Nietion felt as if he was a giant volcano that could erupt at any moment. After the fiercest collision, Emosher's figure retreated several hundred meters. The wings of Apocalypse flapped behind him, stabilizing his body, and the way he looked at Nietion became strange. To his astonishment, he discovered that even though every single one of his attacks managed to injure Nietion, they also stimulated Nietion's fiercest power, as if they were essence detonation pills. Emosher became more and more shocked, and the killing intent in his heart became more and more intense. He guessed that there must be something heaven-defying in Nietion's body. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to resist his blood fiend demonic flame and face his demonic flame edge head-on. The demonic flame edge was formed from the Doomsday Heart, and the blood fiend chi it contained was so violent that an ordinary giant spirit realm martial artist would feel suffocated even if they were within 100 meters of it. For Nietion to be able to face the demonic flame edge head-on with a rank 5 spirit weapon, on one hand, it showed that his sword chi was powerful, and on the other hand, it also hinted that there was an earth-shattering power hidden in his body. Thinking of this, Emosher couldn't help but be a little excited and shouted, "Nietion, no matter what is in your body, I want it." As Emosher's extremely arrogant voice fell, the aura of his body erupted like a landslide and a tsunami, and the blood fiend chi surged like boiling ripples. Behind Emosher, a giant doomsday spirit appeared. It was 300 meters tall, and its whole body was char-black. There were 2 huge death horns on its head, and it looked like a standing bull, releasing a terrible death aura. The demonic wind was cold, and the sky changed color. The space within 5 kilometers was shrouded by the tyrannical, demonic energy of the Doomsday Spirit. Suddenly, it was dark, as if Doomsday had arrived. Everyone saw the giant, demonic statue in midair, and the shock in their hearts rose to an indescribable level at this moment. The giant true body of a level 3 giant spirit warrior was actually so terrifying that even a spirit wheel realm warrior would be fearful. The eyes of many warriors outside the battlefield became blurred at this moment. Their souls were deeply shocked, and they had the urge to prostrate and worship. Nietion, it ends here. Emosher's cold and emotionless voice sounded like a judgment from hell, and the terrible death aura spread out uncontrollably. Doomsday Spirit, demonic edge blood fiend, world-devouring demonic will, heaven's cry. As Emosher's voice fell, the endless blood fiend chi and death demon chi reached its peak, and the space was filled with the smell of blood. In Nietion's ears, the wailing of death resounded. He seemed to see corpses strewn all over the field, and the ground was full of a bloody battlefield. This is an illusion. The moment his mind was in turmoil, Nietion suddenly came to a realization. The demonic wind was cold, and it almost made him lose his mind. At this time, the Doomsday Spirit, which was hundreds of meters tall, suddenly ran wildly, like a wild beast, and swooped over. The speed of the Doomsday Spirit was extremely fast. Its huge body rolled up the clouds in the sky, and its whole body surged with demon flame, turning into a black cloud burning with demon flame, and rushed toward Nietion. Chapter 373. The Doomsday Spirit was like a collapsing mountain, sweeping over majestically. Nietion was suppressed by an invisible force, unable to move an inch. The proud sword wings on Nietion's back flapped madly, but his body seemed to be firmly grasped by an invisible hand, unable to move an inch. Nietion felt that his entire body was enveloped by the blood chi and death devil chi. The empty space around him seemed to have solidified like steel. Not only did it make him unable to move, but also forcefully pressed against him, as though it wanted to crush his body. Nietion's face revealed the most horrified expression. He had never imagined that the Doomsday Spirit's aura would be so terrifying, almost creating an effect similar to the Divine Wheel space. Nietion, everything is over. Just obediently accept your death. Emosher's cold voice rang out, reverberating in Nietion's ears, incomparably ear-piercing. Impossible, Nietion bellowed in rage. The astral soul tablet within the primal chaos original coffin reacted, and a last astral soul surged out. This was the last astral soul on Nietion's body, and it was also the first third-rank astral soul he had ever used. Infernal Ghost Warrior. The power of the third-rank Infernal Ghost Warrior gushed out, and the boundary zone origin formation in the astral river suddenly activated. The origin star stones rotated madly, and waves of astral energy surged out. The aura of Nietion's body skyrocketed, as though it was about to break through the limits of his body and explode with the most shocking power. Nietion felt the surging power of the Infernal Ghost Warrior, and his body trembled violently. Crack! 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 The solidified space around him cracked like a layer of ice, emitting a crisp sound. Nietion's body finally regained the ability to move. Third-rank Astral Soul, Infernal Ghost Warrior. Let me see your strength. Nietion took a deep breath, and the yuan meridians in his body revolved madly again. Waves of astral energy pushed the aura of his body to the limit. Nietion estimated that if it wasn't for the fact that he had cultivated the Nine Extremities War God art, his current body wouldn't be able to withstand the power of a third-level astral soul. He knew that the Doomsday Spirit was definitely the Doomsday Flame's strongest attack. Mo10 would never use such a terrifying attack unless he was forced to. Doomsday Flame wanted to obtain the thing in Nietion's body too much. That hidden, terrifying power made him excited, made him go crazy, and made him disregard everything to obtain it. Boom! Nietion's aura soared to the limit. His star energy covered the sky and covered the earth. In the space that was enveloped by the demonic death chi and baleful blood chi, specks of starlight appeared. Ha ha ha! Nietion, you want to fight my spirit of doomsday with this kind of strength? Simply courting death. However, before he could finish laughing, his expression froze in the next moment. In midair, the specks of starlight that filled the air suddenly expanded and instantly linked together. In the blink of an eye, they actually condensed into a 200-meter-tall armored giant. And in the center of the armored giant's chest, there was an expanding heart. Hell's Ghost Warrior, containing the heart of hell, condensing the body of a ghost warrior, suppressing hell and sweeping away evil. Nietion felt the power of the armored giant in front of him, and his expression froze. He didn't expect that the power of a third-level astral soul would be so terrifying. This was a power that controlled everything and suppressed everything. This is impossible. Mo10 also felt the terrifying aura of the Hell's Ghost Warrior. His crimson eyes suddenly widened, and he didn't dare to believe the scene in front of him. But in the next moment, Mo10 calmed down and smiled. Nietion, I don't care how terrifying the thing in your body is. After meeting me, you will die without a doubt. Mo10 had absolute confidence in his spirit of doomsday. Unless it was the spirit wheel space of a spirit wheel expert, it was impossible to block the spirit of doomsday's heaven cry. Roar! The Hell's Ghost Warrior, like an ancient giant, let out a roar to the sky, and then, disregarding everything, rushed forward. In midair, the two giants fought in the most direct and bloody way. Boom! The spirit of doomsday and the Hell's Ghost Warrior collided with each other. In an earth-shaking collision, sound rang out. The power that suddenly surged out was enough to destroy heaven and earth. A terrifying wave of air, visible to the naked eye, surged out in all directions from the center of the collision. Bang! Bang! And at the center of the collision, The two horns of death on top of the spirit of Doomsday's head instantly broke through the armor of the Hell's Ghost Warrior and directly sank into the latter's huge body. Boom! In the next moment, the most violent explosion sounded, and the Hell's Ghost Warrior actually collapsed. In an instant, countless starlight filled the air, like the stars falling from the sky, sprinkling on the earth. The third-level Hell's Ghost Warrior, in the end, couldn't block the attack of the Spirit of Doomsday. In the next moment, the speed of the Spirit of Doomsday slowed down, but it still recklessly rushed towards Nyetion. 9-level Primal Chaos Beast, come out. Nyetion had long prepared everything. A crazed roar of rage rang out, and 100-meter-long, blood-red, gigantic beast appeared behind him. Roar. For the second time, the 9-level Primal Chaos Beast appeared in front of everyone. It raised its head to the sky and let out a roar that pierced through the clouds, like thunder from the 9 heavens, shaking the heavens and earth. The supreme might of a king was instantly revealed. A scarlet-red body, scarlet-red limbs, and even the wings on its back were scarlet-red like blood. The 9-level Primal Chaos Beast stood proudly in the air, like a fiery cloud in the horizon. That kind of overlooking everything, like a king descending from the heavens, was incomparable. Tear it apart. Nyetion could feel that the aura of the Spirit of Doomsday was weakened by the Hell's Ghost Warrior, and it was temporarily weakened. This kind of opportunity was fleeting, and he naturally wouldn't miss it. Roar! The 9-level Primal Chaos Beast let out a long roar, its roar piercing through the clouds and shattering rocks. Who? The fiery red wings spread out like 2 red curtains that covered the sky. With a sudden shake, the huge body turned into a scarlet-red fireball and whizzed out. The 9-level Primal Chaos Beast suddenly erupted with speed, like a fiery cloud, tearing the heavens and the earth. Boom! The 9-level Primal Chaos Beast and the Spirit of Doomsday were like 2 wild beasts, colliding in the most heroic way. At the center of the collision, the space within 100 meters became extremely distorted because of the impact of the power of blood, the power of death, the power of stars, and various other powers. One could even see traces of the space moving slowly with the naked eye. Buzz! The extreme distortion of the space let out a deep squeezing sound, as if it was moaning. The next moment, the huge body of the Spirit of Doomsday flew backward, letting out a terrifying roar in the air. And at the same time, a figure leaped high, the long sword in his hand slashed down from the sky. In midair, the 100-meter sword shadow bombarded down at lightning speed. No! M.O. Sure, who was in the distance, finally reacted at this moment. He let out a painful roar, and the blade of devil flame in his hand rolled out. However, it was too late. The sword's shadow shocked the sky, falling like a mountain or the sea. Boom! With one sword, the Spirit of Doomsday was directly cut into 2. Boom! The power of blood, the power of death, and the demonic aura turned into turbulent power that dissipated in the air. Chapter 374. The Doomsday Spirit was killed by Nyetion with a single strike. The ferocious, evil blood chi and death demon chi dissipated in the air. Impossible. This is impossible. Mosher couldn't believe the scene in front of him and roared in anger. His Doomsday Spirit was enough to kill any warrior under the Divine Wheel Realm. How could it be killed by Nyetion? The power that Nyetion displayed just now was far beyond Mosher's expectations. It had reached a level that he couldn't understand. The scene in the sky completely shocked everyone. At this moment, they could no longer express the shock in their hearts with words and actions. They could only stare blankly at Nyetion, not saying a word and not moving an inch. Doomsday Flame, you lost. Nyetion's loud voice rang out. He moved and attacked Mosher. The Doomsday Spirit was equivalent to Mosher's original spirit. It was directly destroyed by Nyetion. It was when he was at his weakest. If it didn't kill him now, when would he? Nyetion, I admit. Mosher's body trembled. He was about to shout, but Nyetion's sword light had already swept over. Puff! Just one strike directly pierced through Mo Shi's chest. Mo Shi's expression was extremely painful. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make a sound. He didn't expect that he would go through so much trouble to condense a physical body, and then not hesitate to kill his own clone to increase his strength. But in the first battle since he came to the human world, he actually lost, and lost so completely that he even lost his life. Tian looked at Mo Shi and said coldly, Mo Shi, if you still think that this is just a competition, then you are too naive. The battle between Tian and Mo Shi, on the surface, was just a competition of the dragon blood martial meet. But from the moment the two stepped onto the arena, it was already decided that only one could survive. The next moment, a wave of sword chi surged. Mo Shi felt a force tearing his body apart. He had tried everything to condense a physical body, but at this moment he could no longer bear it. Bang! Mo Shi's body suddenly trembled, and the House of Life exploded. What appeared in midair was not bloodlight, but countless illusory fragments. They were like 7 colored flower petals, blooming with brilliant flames. This was Mo Shi's true form, the illusory flower blood lotus. The Doomsday Flame, the 13th demon flame on the demon flame list, was finally dead. Countless flames filled the air, instantly forming a sea of fire. Tian's body shook. Boundless sword chi surged out and turned into a sword net that enveloped the sea of fire in the air. It then tightened and firmly imprisoned the sea of fire. The 9-extremity chaos beast let out a roar. It opened its mouth and swallowed the flames in the sword net. This was the Doomsday Flame, a flame that could eliminate the power of the blood fiend and the demonic energy of death. It was the purest demonic flame energy. Goo! The 9-extreme chaos beast swallowed the flames and seemed to burp. Then it opened its mouth and spat out a ball of flames. Little guy, go back. The power of the Doomsday Flame is enough for you to digest for a while. Tian smiled faintly. The 9-extremity chaos beast's huge body disappeared. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in the primal chaos original coffin and turned into Little Nine. Little Nine squealed happily, looking unusually excited. Tian felt the power in his body suddenly increase by a lot. Looking inside his body, he was shocked to find that his strength had actually increased by another level. The 9-extremity chaos beast swallowed the Doomsday Flame and directly integrated a part of its power. In the next period of time, it would completely refine the power of the Doomsday Flame. At that time, Tian's strength would definitely increase again. Tian's figure descended from the sky, his face slightly pale. To defeat the Doomsday Flame, he had used his last 2 star souls and even summoned the 9-extremity chaos beast. His essence force had been greatly depleted. Even after he had swallowed the Doomsday Flame's power, his essence force now was less than half. When the judge saw Tian walking over, he stared at him for a long time before he reacted. On the high platform, Duanmu Bai, Elderly, and the rest all had stiff expressions, and their lips were dry. At this moment, Duanmu Bai finally understood why Elderly had previously told him that the latter also did not know what Tian's limit was. In the battle between Tian and Mo Shi, the battle strength that he had displayed was beyond everyone's imagination. Duanmu Bai estimated that even if Mo Shi's opponent had been a warrior above the 5th level of the true element realm, he might not have won. Now, Duanmu Bai's feelings towards Tian could be summed up in 4 words: wholeheartedly convinced. Tian was currently only at the 1st level of the giant spirit realm, but he had already reached a level that even true element realm warriors were afraid of. If he advanced to the true element realm, wouldn't he be able to challenge spirit wheel realm warriors? The battle between Mo Shi and Tian had caused a huge commotion. After a long time, it slowly calmed down. Next, it was the final showdown, the battle for the champion of the Dragon Blood Martial meet. Bang! Zhao Kuo's figure jumped down from the high platform and landed heavily on the arena. The final battle for the champion would be personally judged by Zhao Kuo. He glanced at Nyetian and Long Sky, who nodded slightly. Dragon Blood Martial Meet, the final battle for the champion. Nyetian versus Long Sky. Zhao Kuo announced loudly, his voice like a clap of thunder. As Zhao Kuo walked down, Nyetian and Long Sky's figures leaped up at the same time and landed on the arena at the same time. Long Hao Yin looked at Nyetian with a somewhat complicated expression on his face. He had also been shaken by the battle just now. If he was the one fighting Mo Shi just now, he might already be a corpse by now. Mo Shi's speed was very fast, and the Blood Fiend Demon Flame was very strange. Even his Blade Dragon arm could not defend against it. Long Sky could not understand what kind of power was hidden in Nyetian's body. He could even defend against that suffocating demon flame. It was simply unimaginable, especially the red giant beast origin spirit that appeared behind Nyetian at the end. That domineering and indomitable aura made people feel fear and worship. Composing himself, Long Sky's eyes flashed with killing intent. He said in a cold voice, "Nyetian, I did not think that you would still dare to stand on the arena. In the battle with Mo Shi, you have already used up too much spirit energy. I think that your trump card is almost used up. I am very curious. What will you use to fight against my Blade Dragon arm next? Are you worried about me?" Nyetian smiled faintly, a teasing smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. Long Sky's Blade Dragon arm was indeed frightening. Even Nyetian was deeply afraid of it. The power of the Blade Dragon arm was completely different from Mo Shi's Blood Fiend Demon Flame. The Blade Dragon arm was the purest power and did not contain any spirit energy. Even the power of the stars could not suppress the power of the Blade Dragon arm. If it was Mo Shi against Long Sky, he had a high chance of winning. But if it was Nyetian, he did not have much of a chance of winning. Oomph. Long Sky smiled coldly. The coldness in his eyes intensified and condensed into the most direct killing intent. He roared, "I am worried that you will die a horrible death." Boom! Long Sky stretched out his left arm, and the Azure Dragon seal on the Blade Dragon arm was instantly released. The Blade Dragon arm that was covered in black dragon scales appeared again. Chapter 375. With the reappearance of the Dragon Blade arm, Nyetian could feel a burst of power surging towards him. The Dragon Blade arm was one of the legendary 4 great mysterious arms, rumored to have the power to split the heavens and earth. Previously, Tong Fu was defeated by a single punch from the Dragon Blade arm and almost died tragically. This was enough to show how terrifying the Dragon Blade arm was. However, the current Nyetian was very confident in his absolute strength. After absorbing a portion of the Doomsday Flame's energy, Nyetian's strength had reached the 3rd stage of the Giant Spirit state, and the raw star stone in his body had awakened the power of 256 million stars. At this moment, Nyetian could explode with the power of 1 dragon, even without using any martial techniques. He could tell that Long Sky's Dragon Blade arm only had one of the 9 dragon seals opened, so his strength should only be that of 1 dragon. Therefore, in a competition of absolute strength, Nyetian was not afraid of the Dragon Blade arm. What he was worried about was the Dragon Blade arm awakening its supernatural power. In fact, the Dragon Blade arm was also a type of innate spirit body, but this spirit body was only an arm. Nyetian City Lord, are you ready? Long Sky smiled coldly, releasing the most decisive killing intent. In the next moment, without waiting for Nyetian to speak, the giant Dragon Blade arm had already attacked. The instantaneous burst of power actually produced dazzling sparks in the air. Nyetian stomped his feet fiercely, his eyes flashing with the sharpest determination. He had no intention of retreating. The Yuan meridians in his body revolved wildly, and the power of the stars surged out. Then he punched out, and a giant fist shadow appeared in the air, whistling through the air. Courting death. Long Sky saw that not only did Nyetian not dodge, but he actually chose to meet the attack head-on. This made him sneer in his heart, full of killing intent. The ferocity of the Dragon Blade arm was not something that could be resisted by flesh and blood. Long Sky had seen Nyetian's terrifying strength. Using his full strength, he could create a 1.5-meter fist mark on the Chinquin stone. However, such power was still unable to withstand a single blow from the dragon arm saber. Buzz! It was the fiercest collision. Although the two of them were made of flesh and blood, their fists seemed to be made of steel. The sound of metal colliding rang out. At the center of the collision, dazzling sparks appeared. The direct confrontation of flesh and blood was an absolute clash of strength. Bang! In the next moment, a sudden counterforce surged out, and Nietian felt a heart-wrenching pain from his arm. Immediately after, his figure was sent flying by the impact. Then, he looked at Long Sky, who took 3 steps back before regaining his balance, completely unscathed. Dragon Sky, the strength of the blade dragon arm, is only SOSO. The proud soared heavenly wings appeared on Nietian's back as he stood in midair and shouted. After clashing head-on with Dragon Sky's fist, Nietian felt as if his entire arm was about to be crippled. He felt a wave of numbness and was about to lose consciousness. The power of 2,560,000 stars is still not enough to contend against the blade dragon arm. Although he was mocking Long Tian on the surface, Nietian was extremely shocked. The strength of the blade dragon arm was beyond his expectations. In the previous head-on collision, Nietian wanted to test the limits of the blade dragon arm, but the result surprised him even more. The strength of the blade dragon arm was definitely above the power of one dragon. Once again realizing the horror of the blade dragon arm, Nietian's face did not show the slightest fear. Instead, his eyes were filled with an even stronger desire. Previously, Nietian had only heard of the blade dragon arm and had never seen it with his own eyes. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes and personally verified its strength, how could he let it go? If Long Sky was a gentleman, it would be fine if the blade dragon arm was in his hands. Unfortunately, he was a member of the Heaven Burial Association, the second dark force in the 3,000 small worlds. Therefore, this blade dragon arm was something that Nietian was determined to obtain. Nietian, do you really think that the blade dragon arm only has this kind of strength? Long Sky's ruthless voice could be heard as he stretched out. The blade dragon arm streams of dragon aura were unleashed, covering the sky and land like rolling clouds. Blade dragon wings. The dragon aura surged out and formed a pair of black Qilin wings on Long Sky's back. Phew, phew. The blade dragon wings spread out, causing Long Sky's aura to increase in quality. The surrounding space instantly tightened, producing a strange moan sound. Nietian, you will soon find out that the strength of the blade dragon arm is beyond your imagination. Long Sky's figure soared into the sky and stood opposite Nietian. His face was filled with a ferocious, murderous intent. Nietian slightly stretched his arm, activating the Star Force. The numbness immediately disappeared. He let out a calm smile and said in a cold voice, "The stronger the strength of the blade dragon arm, the better." The light of desire in Nietian's eyes was so obvious that it was on the verge of bursting out. Ha! Sensing Nietian's evil intention, Long Sky burst out laughing and yelled, "Nietian, how dare you covet my blade dragon arm? I can only say that you're thinking too much." Following the wild laughter, Long Sky lashed out a punch. An overbearing fist shadow surged forward like a tsunami, with a vague silhouette of a blue dragon appearing. The force of the punch shook the heavens and earth, stirring up a strong gust of wind. A whistling sound was heard, mixed with the roar of an ancient dragon. Countless invisible wind blades sliced through the air, aiming at Nietian. Nietian didn't show any fear, nor did he try to dodge. Instead, he slashed his heaven slash sword down from the sky. 100-meter-long sword shadow whizzed through the air, along with a terrifying sword chi that engulfed all of the incoming wind blades. In the next second, the fist shadow arrived, accompanied by the roar of an ancient dragon that shook the heavens and earth. Bang! Nietian activated the extreme wood emerald battle armor. His figure was knocked a few hundred meters backward before he could stabilize his footing. Following this, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The battle against Emotan had consumed a huge amount of Nietion's origin force. Each slash he executed was a great challenge to his body's limits. Under such circumstances, even the 3 seals of the divine god of battle would not have any effect. How is it? Are you satisfied with the power of the blade dragon arm? Long Sky let out a hideous grin as his figure sprang forward with a ferocious, murderous intent. Nietion frowned slightly and mumbled in his heart. It seems like I'll have to show my true strength. Bang! 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 As Long Sky's figure sprang forward, a strange sight took place all of a sudden. Nietion's figure was emitted a tremendous sword intent, each of which took the shape of a human. One after another, the human-shaped sword chi flowed in all directions, filling the air with surging sword chi. Upon a closer look, they looked exactly like Nietion. Long Sky was stunned by the sight before him. His figure halted, not daring to act recklessly. Nietion's strength was strange to begin with. Long Sky could not help but be cautious after witnessing the strange sight before him. Long Hao Ian, you're indeed cautious. This time, you're going to lose because of your cautiousness. The corner of Nietion's mouth curled up into a sinister smile, as if he was hatching some kind of scheme. Previously, during the battle between Nietion and Long Sky, the latter was too cautious, thus he was caught off guard by Nietion. Chapter 376. Dragon Sky looked at the humanoid sword chi around Nietion and seemed to understand something. A look of horror appeared on his face. 2 words appeared in his mind: sword spirit doppelganger. It was rumored that a grandmaster swordsman who had comprehended the supreme sword Tao could use his own sword chi to form a sword spirit clone. Moreover, the sword spirit doppelganger was different from ordinary doppelganger martial skills. Every sword spirit doppelganger could inherit all of the swordsman's strength and even martial skills. However, Nietion was merely a sword heart swordsman. How could he possibly condense a sword spirit doppelganger? This was absolutely impossible. Although Long Sky did not cultivate the sword Tao, he cultivated the saber Tao. The saber Tao and the sword Tao were different paths that led to the same goal. With his saber intent cultivation, he couldn't even reach the threshold of the saber spirit doppelganger. How could Nietion, a sword heart swordsman, condense a sword spirit doppelganger? Don't even think about it. This is a sword chi doppelganger. Nietion saw through Long Sky's surprise and said provocatively, sword chi doppelganger? This was the first time Long Sky had heard of this name. The shock on his face was even more obvious. He thought to himself, is this kid trying to scare me? I'm a saber intent saber wielder. Why can't I form a saber chi clone? This time, Nietion really didn't lie. What gushed out of his body was indeed a sword chi clone. Condensing a human form with pure sword chi and supreme sword Tao was far inferior to the sword spirit doppelganger, but it was more than enough to frighten others. However, Nietion expended all his essence energy to condense 12 sword chi clones, and it was not as simple as just bluffing. Seeing that Nietion seemed to be thinking about something, Long Sky did not give him the chance to do so. He roared, and his aura grew stronger. A dragon head tyrant saber appeared in his hand, and a ferocious saber chi spread out, covering the surrounding 1 kilometer. Nietion, no matter what tricks you play, you won't be able to escape death today. Long Sky's face was ferocious and terrifying. He slashed out with his dragon head tyrant saber, and a 100-meter-long saber shadow descended. It was extremely imposing and powerful, pressing down on Nietion. The 12 sword chi clones around Nietion soared into the sky. His main body blasted out with absolute heaven slash, and a 100-meter-long sword shadow instantly condensed. Boom! The saber and the sword clashed, and a loud sound rang out. Waves of shock waves spread out, and even the spectators who were thousands of meters away could feel the howling winds. Nietion's figure was once again sent flying, and he couldn't stop spitting out blood from his mouth. However, the corners of his mouth raised into a strange arc, as if everything was within his calculations. Long Sky took a few steps back and steadied himself. He laughed hysterically. Ha ha, Nietion, let's see how long you can last. At this moment, Dragon Sky could feel that Nietion's aura was getting weaker and weaker. This was obviously a sign that his elemental energy was running out. Hence, every clash of moves at this time was very advantageous to Long Sky. His strength was at the 9th level of the Giant Soul Realm, which was much higher than Nietion in the first place. In addition, he had rested for quite some time previously. Currently, his elemental energy was abundant, and he did not care about his elemental energy consumption at all. But it was completely different for Nietion. The battle with Mo sure exhausted a large amount of his elemental energy. At this time, every time he clashed with Long Hao Ian, he would be unable to cope. If this carried on, in less than 10 moves, Nietion's elemental energy would definitely be depleted. A martial artist without elemental energy was still at the mercy of others. However, just as Long Sky's soft voice had yet to fade, his expression suddenly stiffened. 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation, open. Nietion wiped away the fresh blood at the corner of his mouth, and his face revealed a sinister smile. Following the sound of Nietion's voice falling, within a few hundred meters around Long Sky, 12 gigantic sword images suddenly appeared, crossing heaven and earth, forming an encircling posture, encircling Long Sky in the center. The 12 sword images were like enormous pillars connecting to the sky. Sword intent surged, and sword chi was thick, enveloping Long Sky. What's this? Long Sky was quite taken aback. A saber slashed out and struck on the sword formation. It was actually like a clay ox entering the sea, vanishing without a trace. When Nietion saw that the 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation was activated and trapped Long Sky, he could not help heaving a sigh in his heart. 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation was one of the 3 great sword formations in the AO sword art. The AO sword art was a super heaven grade sword art. The 3 great sword formations contained within were all existences comparable to Tier 9 spiritual arrays. The 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation that Nietion set up at this time was naturally not a Tier 9 spiritual array. If it really was a Tier 9 spiritual array, Long Sky would be destroyed to pieces in the blink of an eye. The true 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation could only be activated by 12 profound true bodies. At this moment, Nietion had used 12 Sword Chi clones to activate the 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation, so it could only be regarded as a semi-finished product. But even a semi-finished 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation could barely have the effect of a Tier 4 spiritual array. A Tier 4 spiritual array, not to mention trapping a giant spirit realm martial artist, even a true energy realm martial artist would find it difficult to break the spiritual array. Just now, when Nietion and Long Sky clashed head-on, it was to attract the latter's attention. Otherwise, how could his 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation trap the latter so easily? However, the power of the 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation did not just trap Long Sky. At this moment, the 12 sword images outside the sword formation spun wildly, forming a huge sword formation vortex in the center. The heaven and earth spiritual energy within the surrounding 10,000 meters seemed to collapse, crazily pouring into the sword formation vortex. It was obvious that the 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation was absorbing the heaven and earth spiritual energy. And this absorbed heaven and earth spiritual energy was all gathered into the 12 sword chi clones at the top of the sword formation, then transmitted into Nietion's body. This was only the lowest level of the 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation. If it was the true 12 Heaven Slaying Sword Formation, it would have sword images that were tens of thousands of meters long. When the sword formation fully unfolded, it would be thousands of miles wide. Anyone caught in the sword formation would instantly have their origin energy sucked dry. Everything was within Nietion's calculations. Long Sky dashed left and right in the sword formation, slashing at the sword formation again and again. The saber chi that erupted became nourishment for the sword formation, making the entire sword formation even more unbreakable. Impossible. Shrouded by a terrifying sword chi, Long Sky felt an invisible force being exerted on his body. The origin energy in his body was actually leaking out uncontrollably. He was unwilling to believe what was happening in front of him, and he roared violently. The scene in the sky caused everyone's expression to change again. What a terrifying sword formation! Although Duanmu Bai was not a swordsman, he was an expert in the spirit wheel realm. Even though he was tens of thousands of meters away from the sword formation, he could still feel the terrifying power that was gushing out from the sword formation. At this moment, he did not know how to describe the shock in his heart. In his heart, Nietian had risen to an unreachable height. He was like a god that could only be looked up to and not touched. What a terrifying sword essence! Elderly was also deeply moved. Nietian had brought him too many shocks and once again refreshed his understanding of martial arts. At the same time, among the crowd outside the battleground, a middle-aged warrior in black looked at the scene in the sky. His face was slightly shocked, but he did not panic at all. He thought to himself, Nietian's strength is indeed strange and unpredictable. It seems that it will not be easy for Long Qi to win. Young Master Long Qi, it is time to show your true strength. Long Qi was another name for Long Sky. Chapter 377. Wei Yangzi thought to himself. He looked at the sword formation in the sky expectantly. The 12 heavens slaying sword formation was terrifying. However, Wei Yangzi knew that a rank 4 spiritual formation was not enough to trap the legendary dragon arm. The reason why Wei Yangzi trusted Long Sky so much was because he knew the latter's strength very well. Unless Nietian could unleash the strength of a spirit will practitioner, he would definitely not be a match for Long Sky. In the sky, Long Sky's face was hideous and terrifying. He was on the verge of insanity. He did not expect that he would be forced into such a corner by Nietian. Long Sky, I want your dragon arm. Nietian's figure approached, and his voice was cold and emotionless. Don't even think about it. Long Sky was completely enraged. He let out a deep roar. In the next moment, Long Hao Hien went berserk. Like a wild beast, all the hair on his body stood on end. He extended his dragon arms and released waves of dragon chi. The ferocious aura attacked the 12 heaven slaying sword formation. Nietian felt that the sword formation was shaking violently. There were signs that it was going to break. Very good. It's time to end this. Realizing this, Nietian no longer hesitated. His cold voice sounded like a death knell from hell. After absorbing the spiritual energy within 10,000 meters, Nietian's elemental energy had recovered to its peak. The next move would be the one that would take Long Sky's life. Long Sky, prepare to die. The thunderous voice contained the sharpest, murderous intent. As Nietian's voice fell, endless sword essence gathered in the 12 heaven slaying sword formation. The 12 heaven slaying sword formation suddenly sped up. The spiritual energy in the sword formation quickly gathered into the 12 sword energy clones at the top of the sword formation. Poof, poof, poof. After absorbing enough sword chi, the 12 sword chi doppelgangers rapidly returned to Nietian's true form. The next moment, 12 huge sword shadows rose into the sky. Nietian stood at the top of the sword formation like a demon god from hell. Proud sword skill, sky-piercing sword. An imposing voice rang out. Nietian did not wait any longer. The proud sword heavenly wings appeared on his back. With a flap of the wings, he dove down and stabbed out with his sword. Instantly, rolling sword chi surged out like a collapsing mountain and a roaring sea. Just as Nietian struck with his sword, the 12 sword shadows around him instantly condensed and strengthened the heavenly chop of sword extinction. Suddenly, a 1,000-meter-long sword that connected the heavens and the earth was formed. Like a giant beast descending from the sky, it swept up the scattered clouds in all directions and brought with it a fierce gale. Come on, come on. I will let you see the true power of the dragon arm blade. Below, Long Sky looked as though he had gone mad. His eyes were bloodshot on his ferocious face, and his blade-like arm suddenly expanded. Crack, crack, pitter-patter. There was a cracking sound in the air. The blade-like arm was like a silkworm turning into a butterfly or a snake shedding its skin. It broke through the shackles of a dragon's scales and suddenly expanded. In the blink of an eye, the originally 3-meter-long blade-like arm had extended to 10 meters long. Long Sky's tall and straight body seemed extremely small in front of the huge blade-like arm. Wrath of the Green Dragon! The blade-like arm suddenly struck out, and Long Sky's figure soared into the sky. Roar! A deep and powerful dragon roar rang out, and immediately a giant green dragon roared out. The giant green dragon was hundreds of meters long, and its body was dark green with a hint of black. Its huge dragon head could almost break through the restraints of space. Its bloodshot eyes were like the sun and the moon, looking down on everything in the world. In an instant, the billowing dragon chi spread out majestically. The giant green dragon's body was like a giant tree that reached the sky, and it soared into the sky. Nietion instantly realized what was going on as he sensed the vigorous aura assaulting his face. I can't believe he has unsealed the second seal on his dragon arm. All this while, he had thought that Long Sky's blade-like arm had only unlocked the first of the 9 green dragon seals. He had never thought that Long Sky had actually unlocked the second green dragon seal. The unlocking of the second green dragon seal meant that the blade-like arm's absolute strength had reached the strength of 10 dragons. Even a martial artist at the peak of the true energy realm might not have the strength of 10 dragons. It was undoubtedly too late for him to realize this. At this moment, he could only fight with his life on the line. There was no other way out. Nietion was still at a disadvantage because he was not familiar with the blade-like arm. He had only heard of the blade-like arm before, but had never seen it with his own eyes. Therefore, he had no way of knowing how many green dragon seals Long Sky had unlocked. The giant sword swooped down. The majestic green dragon rose against the momentum. In the next moment, the most violent collision occurred. Kaboom! There was a loud noise, as if a heavy mountain had crashed to the ground. The space within a few thousand meters shook, and the roaring power surged in all directions. Everyone on the scene was startled by the strong gust of wind blowing toward them. The power of Nietion's sword was too terrifying, and the blade-like arm's power was even more unimaginable. When the two destructive forces collided, there could only be one word to describe it: tragic. In midair, the space was chaotic, as if it had fallen into a thick fog. After a long time, the rolling waves gradually dissipated, and 2 figures appeared in front of everyone again. Nietion's face was as white as a sheet, and there were blood stains on the corner of his mouth. His clothes were tattered, and he looked very disheveled. The sword just now had almost exhausted all the power of Nietion's 12 heaven punishing sword formation. But even under such circumstances, he still could not kill Long Sky. Looking at Long Sky, although he was also disheveled, his aura was getting fiercer and fiercer. The 10-meter blade-like arm extended in the air, carrying with it a thick aura of death, as if it was mocking Nietion's weakness. Nietion! Suddenly, Long Sky's voice rang out, and an arrogant aura filled the air. He laughed unscrupulously. I admit, your strength is beyond my expectations. Unfortunately, the power of the blade-like arm is beyond your imagination. This time, you will die for sure. Phew! Nietion wiped the blood stains on the corner of his mouth and let out a deep breath. His expression became a little more relaxed. It was not easy for him to withstand the collision just now and not be seriously injured. However, to defeat Long Sky, it would be difficult, very difficult. Long Sky, there is no winner between us. What I said just now is still valid. Your blade-like arm is mine, Nietion said calmly. His eyes were filled with confidence, but at the same time, they were filled with the coldest, murderous intent. Long Sky's heart skipped a beat when he sensed the strong confidence in Nietion's eyes, but he quickly regained his composure and burst out laughing. Nietion, at this stage, do you think you can still defeat me? It's not that I can. I definitely can. I definitely can. Nyetian let out a calm smile. Even without the slightest bit of primary force, his domineering aura was still shocking. How presumptuous! Long Haoyin let out a thunderous roar. Nyetian, I'll show you how formidable the Blade Dragon arm is after breaking the second seal of the Azure Dragon is. Following his furious voice, Long Sky's blade-like arm was fully extended. The sharp dragon claws emitted an icy glow as a boiling dragon chi was fired into the sky. Nyetian, I did not want to use this move, but you forced me to. Long Sky's voice was extremely cold, as a firm murderous intent could be felt. Chapter 378. Bang! Long Sky's aura skyrocketed as a shocking dragon aura was emitted, causing the vague silhouette of a dragon's head and dragon scales to appear in the air. Dragon aura, it was real dragon aura. After breaking the seal of the Azure Dragon on the arm of the Saber Dragon, it was able to absorb the spiritual chi of the heavens and earth to produce real dragon aura. This was the power that belonged to a godly dragon. Even though it was only a hint of aura, the overwhelming aura was enough to send chills down one's spine. It seems like I have no other choice. Nyetian frowned slightly after seeing Long Sky's aura. At this moment, he had no other choice but to use the 3 seals of the divine god of battle. Nyetian's figure stood in the air with a cold expression, like the god of slaughter descending upon the mortal realm, without the slightest hint of human emotion. He performed a hand seal, causing the primary meridians in his body to circulate rapidly, causing his primary force to surge out. The following moment would decide his life and death. Nyetian's blood was boiling, as every inch of his flesh and every bone was squeezed out the last bit of energy. Without sufficient primary force, Nyetian had no choice but to push his body to the limit. As the hand seals were completed, the space around him began to change. The force of the heavens and earth tilted eerily, as if the space had collapsed, as boundless spiritual chi of the heavens and earth surged into Nyetian's body. The eerie scene once again shocked the crowd. The boundless spiritual chi of the heavens and earth surged into Nyetian's body like an invisible spring. He was currently a vortex that absorbed the spiritual chi of the heavens and earth. At a certain moment, Nyetian suddenly felt the primal star boulder in his body emit a sudden glow. Bang! Sensing it, the realm origin formation suddenly let out a loud roar, and the speed of its operation suddenly increased. Immediately, the origin star stone that connected the Milky Way turned like a huge drill. The space of the boundary formation suddenly brightened, as the stars in the first heavenly river began to flicker. It was as if countless stars were falling from the sky, igniting the star energy on the primal star boulder. The star energy is awakening. Upon realizing this, Nyetian's face was filled with astonishment, which was soon replaced by joy. Originally, the power of the stars would only awaken when Nyetian's strength increased. At this moment, it actually began to awaken on its own. In an instant, surging energy surged into his Dantian Yuan meridian like a river bursting through a dam. Nyetian felt a power that almost made him explode. The amazement in his heart reached its peak. A vigorous life energy slowly flowed out of the star stone, turning into dark golden blood that flowed into Nyetian's meridians. It's that dark golden blood again. Nyetian suddenly remembered that when he was fighting against Emoshur, the origin star stone had also flowed with this kind of dark golden blood. It was the purest aura of life, as if it was the ruler of everything. Nyetian could faintly sense that the dark golden blood was slowly changing his physique. He didn't have time to think too much. This was a moment of life and death, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. Nyetian frantically absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The spiritual energy around him was so dense that it was about to liquefy into water. On the other side, Long Sky's aura had also reached its peak. Nyetian could clearly sense a huge pressure coming from Long Sky's body. It was almost impossible to resist, as if it really was the power of a divine dragon. Tion, are you still going to fight back at this moment? Long Sky sensed the change in the aura of heaven and earth around him. His hideous face roared, "You're too childish. In front of my heaven-defying dragon soul, you will definitely die." Boom! As the last words left his mouth, Long Sky's aura suddenly exploded. Waves of irresistible energy surged out of him. Dragon chi surged and compressed space. Long Sky's body was enveloped in endless dragon chi. His aura rose to a height that was different from before. Bang! Bang! Two explosions rang out in the air. It was as if a huge force had been forcefully torn apart. The seal of the Azure Dragon has been completely opened. Tion immediately understood what had happened. His face changed slightly, and the elemental meridians in his body started to circulate even more frantically. Now, both of them were gathering their aura. Whoever's aura was faster and stronger would be able to grasp the opportunity to win. Kaboom! Countless green dragon patterns suddenly appeared on Long Sky's body. The dragon patterns floated in the air and surged continuously. In an instant, a giant green dragon was formed. The giant green dragon that Long Hao-Ian had just punched out was just a shadow. Now, the dragon that he had condensed was closer to a real entity. Within the giant dragon body, the dragon chi surged, causing the green dragon soul to almost condense into a real entity. The dragon's shape was so realistic that it was almost real. There was a rumor in the heaven realm that once the 9 seals of the Blade Dragon arm were completely opened, the complete power of the Azure Dragon would be released. The Azure Dragon was one of the 4 top ancient dragon clans. Its true power was not inferior to the legendary king of the dragon clan, the Golden Giant Dragon. Rumor had it that the ancient dragon clan was an existence that surpassed the 9th rank spiritual beast. It was unknown how the ancient human clan could survive under the threat of the dragon clan. Roar! The Blade Dragon arm defying Sky Dragon soul roared out. A majestic dragon roar resounded through the sky and pierced through the clouds. It was like the call of an ancient giant beast. It actually made people see a scene of the Azure Dragon galloping in front of them. Tion, it's time to say goodbye. The defying Sky Dragon soul's giant body rolled, and a huge aura pressed down. Suddenly, the space around them almost collapsed. Everyone was stunned. They couldn't imagine that a warrior of the 9th rank of the giant spirit realm could actually explode with such terrifying power. This power! Duamu Bai was also stunned. Everything was too unexpected. The appearance of the Blade Dragon arm defying Sky Dragon soul. That kind of tyrannical aura could only be resisted by a warrior of the spirit wheel stage. Outside the martial field, Wei Yangzi, who was hiding in the crowd, revealed a smile. He already knew that the Blade Dragon arm defying Sky Dragon soul would not let him down. The Heaven Burial Society was the most mysterious organization in the 3,000 small worlds. As a member of the Heaven Burial Society, the reason why Long Sky appeared at the Dragon Blood Martial Meet was obviously for the Dragon Blood. To other warriors, the Dragon Blood was just something to increase their strength. But to Long Sky, who had the Blade Dragon arm defying Sky, it was even more important, because the Dragon Blood could help him open the Azure Dragon seal faster. As long as he could open the 3rd Azure Dragon seal, even if he only had the strength of a giant spirit realm, he would dare to fight with a warrior of the spirit wheel stage. Tion, you didn't expect this, right? It's impossible for you to win against me. Long Sky's arrogant laughter was accompanied by the rumbling dragon roar. It was as if his entire being could fuse with the defying Sky Dragon soul. His laughter floated in the air as if it could shatter the void. Facing Long Sky's provocation, Tion didn't care and continued to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The defying Sky Dragon soul was Long Sky's ultimate move. If he couldn't resist it, he would definitely die. The giant dragon body whizzed out. Soaring dragon energy shrouded from all directions. The majestic aura of destruction pressed down. Chapter 379. The dragon's soul swept across the world. The moment the dragon's soul pressed down on Yetion, its murderous aura spread out and shrouded the space. Puff, puff, puff. Countless wind blades came at Yetion's face, cutting deep and shallow wounds on his body. But his expression remained unchanged, like a devil who despised the world. No matter how violent the storm was, he would not move. In the void, the dragon roared, which seemed to be mixed with endless ghost cries and wolf howls, making people couldn't help but imagine the scene of hell's execution ground. 100 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters, 10 meters. The dragon soul was getting closer and closer to Yetion, but the latter didn't care at all, and even closed his eyes for a moment. In Yetion's body, the domain origin formation in the star domain was operating to its peak, and the endless star domain was filled with a deafening roar. Torrential life power surged out of the origin star stone as the dark golden blood flowed within Yetion's veins, merging perfectly with his bloodline. At this moment, Yetion felt that the power of his whole body had reached its peak. Flowing killing seal open. Finally, when the heaven-defying dragon soul was 5 meters away from Yetion, a voice that was so calm that it made people's hair stand on end. Boom! Immediately, the power of Yetion's whole body burst out, and in the air, a huge handprint appeared. The next moment was the moment of life and death. Even if he was smashed to pieces, he must not retreat. At this moment, everyone's pupils suddenly dilated, and one word was written in their eyes. Shock. Indescribable shock. No words could express the shock in their hearts. At this moment, Dragon Sky also sensed the danger, and there was an unconcealable panic in his eyes. Under the flowing killing seal, there is no life left. Yetion's cold voice sounded like a death knell, sounding the road of no return for Dragon Sky. Boom! The dragon soul and the flowing killing seal collided. Roar! The dragon soul's majestic dragon roar sounded again, but this time it was the last cry. Bang! Bang! The sky-defying dragon soul and the drifting killing seal collapsed almost at the same time. Suddenly, all kinds of power surged out. Dark clouds, astral winds, space power, star power, heaven and earth spiritual power, dragon chi, dragon souls, and countless other powers burst forth with dazzling light. Boom! 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 The billowing airwaves came one after another. At the center of the collision, 2 streaks of bloody light streaked across the sky. Yetion and Dragon Sky were both sent flying. Yetion withstood the impact of the endless waves of chi. The clothes on his body were torn apart, and the skin on his body couldn't withstand the violent impact. Lines of blood appeared on his skin. At this critical moment, Yetion used his last bit of essence energy to prop up the extreme wood jade sky armor. Bang! 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 The dense waves of air were like sharp blades in the wind as they struck the heavenly wood armor, producing dull sounds of impact. Yetion violently shook the proud sword wings on his back and finally stabilized his body. At this moment, his face was pale, and his face was densely covered with bloody wounds. His whole body was covered with lines of different depths of blood. On the other side, Dragon Sky suddenly opened the blade dragon wings on his back and finally stabilized his body. But at this moment, he was extremely embarrassed. His whole body was dripping with blood, especially the blade dragon arm. The dragon scales were rolling up, and his whole arm was dyed red with blood. It was very frightening. Why? Dragon Sky ignored the pain all over his body and stared at Yetion with bloodshot eyes. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him and roared, "This is impossible. My sky-defying dragon soul is enough to kill a true elemental tier 5 expert. You can't possibly block it." I said, "Your blade dragon arm, I want it." Yetion's figure swept over. Although he was already at the limit of his body, the killing intent in his eyes was even more resolute. He could already see that at this moment, Dragon Sky had no strength to fight back. Originally, forcibly using the second Azure Dragon Seal on the Blade Dragon arm was not a small burden for Dragon Sky, not to mention that his sky-defying dragon soul had been shattered by Yetion. Although the strongest move between the two of them was a lose-lose, yet Tian paid a smaller price. Dragon Sky put away the blade dragon arm, and his eyes suddenly looked somewhere outside the battlefield. And then he stared at Tian and growled in a low voice. Tian, do you really dare to kill me? You know my identity. If you dare to kill me, I guarantee that Heaven Luo City will become a cemetery the next day. Humph. Tianling smiled, but the killing intent in his eyes was even heavier. He said coldly, at this moment, do you think this kind of trick of threatening a little kid will work on me? Today, if Tian let Dragon Sky go, it would really be the root of Heaven Luo City's destruction. Anyway, he had already offended an enemy like Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, so he was not afraid of another Heaven Burial Association. There was a point in saying that when there were too many debts, there was no need to worry, and when there were too many lice, there was no itch. As Tian spoke, he walked over step by step, and with every step he took, the killing intent in his eyes became stronger. Tian, do you dare? Dragon Sky's entire body was shrouded in killing intent, and the despair in his eyes suddenly expanded. Even his voice was trembling because of it. You'll know whether I dare or not when you're dead. Tianling smiled, and the sword Absolute Heaven Beheader was raised high. When the sword light fell, it would be the moment when Dragon Sky's head fell to the ground. I'll kill you. All of a sudden, Long Hao Yan's dying body shuddered. Immediately afterwards, the blade dragon wings on his back folded and morphed into a sharp blade that shot towards Tian. This was the most brutal attack, and it contained the determination of a life and death struggle. Unfortunately, Tian was already prepared. His body lit up with a layer of green light, and in a flash, he blocked Dragon Sky's last attack. The blade dragon wings on Dragon Sky's back disappeared, and he immediately lost his balance and fell to the ground. Die! Yet Tian flapped his wings, and his body swooped down and stabbed at Dragon Sky. Wei Yangzi, save me! Dragon Sky shouted in midair. Boom! Then, a figure rose from the ground, and like a bolt of lightning, he charged at Dragon Sky. Zhao Kuo, stop him! Tian had already expected this, and he shouted. Zhao Kuo was still on the ground, and when he heard Tian shout, he immediately reacted, but he was one step too late. Swoosh! Tian disregarded everything, and a sword light gushed out from the sword Absolute Heaven Beheader, whistling through the air. Unfortunately, the figure in the sky was even faster than his sword light. Wei Yangzi's body was surging with a faint light, and he actually opened up a space. His figure swept into midair, and he saved Dragon Sky before Tian's sword light could reach him. The next moment, Wei Yangzi suddenly turned around, and his gloomy eyes locked onto Tian. Suddenly, a formless pressure enveloped him, and the space around Tian froze. Tian's extremely fast figure seemed to be frozen, and he suddenly became very slow. Divine Wheel Space. Tian immediately realized that it was Wei Yangzi's Divine Wheel Space that had directly sealed the space he was in. Little brat, die! Wei Yangzi's indifferent voice was heard, and there was no joy or sorrow in his voice, as if he was talking about something normal. Chapter 380. Wei Yangzi looked at Tian cold. His face was filled with murderous intent. From the battle between Tian and Long Sky, Wei Yangzi had already seen his astonishing talent and strength. If such a person was allowed to continue growing, he would sooner or later become heaven-defying. At this moment, Wei Yangzi had made up his mind to kill Tian no matter what. Tian was locked by Wei Yangzi's Godwheel space. His body was confined, and he could not move. Only warriors at the Godwheel stage and above could possess the Godwheel space. It could directly confine a space. A ray of white light attacked Tian at an extremely fast speed. The friction in the air created a dazzling white light. Oh no! Tian's face was filled with horror. He knew that things were not going well, but he had no other way. Even if the raw star stone in his body released the power of the stars, the space around him still did not move. If he was hit by Wei Yangzi's attack, Tian would definitely die. His opponent was a warrior at the Godwheel stage. Nietion could not contend with him at this moment. At this critical moment, something strange happened. Bang! Just as the fatal ray of white light was about to hit Nietion, a powerful palm force whizzed out and blocked the fatal attack. Bang! In the next moment, a formless and massive force came crashing over. The space around Nietion's divine wheel was directly broken. He could move his body immediately. Elderly, seeing the face that suddenly appeared beside him, Nietion heaved a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, Elderly had been paying attention to every movement on the battlefield. His figure appeared almost at the same time as Wei Yangzi. This was how he managed to block the fatal attack for Nietion. "You dog! How dare you cause trouble at the Dragon Blood Martial Gathering? You are courting death." At this moment, Zhao Kuo's figure appeared. He soared into the sky and struck out with his palm. Thunder rumbled. The powerful palm force spread out for thousands of meters and bombarded Wei Yangzi. Nietion could feel the space below being compressed and deformed. His heart shuddered. The attack of a spirit wheel stage expert is indeed overbearing. Although the battle between him and Long Hao Yin just now was very thrilling, either one of them would definitely not be able to withstand an all-out attack from a spirit wheel realm warrior. Wei Yangzi lowered his head and looked at Zhao Kuo. His face was expressionless as he slapped down with his palm. Suddenly, the two giant handprints that blotted out the sky collided with each other. Boom! Unfortunately, the palm print pressing down from above was obviously more terrifying. It swallowed Zhao Kuo's giant palm print and pressed down with the force of a thunderbolt. Pump! With a muffled sound, Zhao Kuo smashed into the ground like an arrow. Rumble! A loud sound came from the ground, and a dozen or so meters of dust flew into the air. A huge pit that was tens of meters deep appeared. Zhao Kuo's body lay in the center of the huge pit, dripping with blood. It was hard to tell whether he was dead or alive. Seeing this scene, Nietion could not help but gasp. He did not expect Wei Yangzi to be so powerful. With just one palm, Wei Yangzi had beaten Zhao Kuo to a pulp. For a spirit will practitioner, the gap between each stage was like a chasm that could not be crossed. Duanmu Bai, Elderly, Zhao Kuo, Lu Liangkai, and the rest were all spirit will practitioners. However, Duanmu Bai's aura was obviously much more powerful than the other three. Elderly and Zhao Kuo should be on par, while Lu Liangkai was slightly weaker. He should only be at the first stage of the spirit wheel. When Elderly saw that Wei Yangzi had sent Zhao Kuo flying with just one palm, his face turned gloomy. At this moment, another figure appeared. It was Duanmu Bai. Duanmu Bai and Elderly looked at each other. Both of them had a solemn look on their faces. Wei Yangzi was too powerful. Even Duanmu Bai would not be able to send Zhao Kuo flying with just one palm. Get lost. Wei Yangzi sent Zhao Kuo flying with one palm. There was no expression on his face. He then turned to Duanmu Bai and Elderly and spat out a word coldly. Duanmu Bai and Elderly looked at each other again. They did not expect him to be so arrogant. Both of them tensed up. Not only did they not retreat, but they also stood in front of Nietion and said at the same time, "Nietion, City Lord, you leave first." Yeah, Nietion nodded, but he had a bad premonition in his heart. Wei Yangzi was too powerful. He sent Zhao Kuo flying with one palm. It would be worse for Nietion to stay. He would only be a burden to Duanmu Bai and Elderly. The strength of a spirit will practitioner was too strong. He was not someone that he could fight against at this moment. Leave? Wei Yangzi smiled coldly. There was finally some expression on his face, but it was one of extreme contempt. His body shook, and a powerful and domineering aura pressed down like a mountain. Nietion suddenly felt his chest sink. A powerful and irresistible force wrapped around his entire body. Nietion, Elderly saw this and immediately opened up his spirit wheel space. He actually chose to fight against Wei Yangzi head-on. At the same time, Duanmu Bai also made a move. A powerful palm pushed the dark clouds in all directions and pressed towards Wei Yangzi. At this moment, Wei Yangzi was still holding the dragon sky in his hand. However, he was calm and even had a look of contempt on his face. Bang! In midair, the spirit wheel spaces of Elder Li and Wei Yangzi collided. Two invisible forces pressed against each other. There was nothing fancy about it, but it could be felt that the space was compressed to the extreme. It was as if it was going to collapse in the next moment. Bang! On the other side, Wei Yangzi struck with his palm. A majestic aura was revealed. It directly pushed Duanmu back by 100 meters. Go! Elder Li's face was tense. He withstood the pressure from Wei Yangzi. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as he shouted. Nietian felt the space around him move a little. Immediately after, the proud sword wings shook and his body retreated by 1,000 meters. Wei Yangzi frowned. There was another expression on his face. It was anger. Immediately after, his cold eyes locked onto Elder Li. He said coldly, "Old thing, since you like to save people so much, then leave your life here. You want to kill me? It's not that easy." Elder Li raised his eyebrows. In the next moment, the expression on his face became one of extreme shock. "You trying to trick me with a doppelganger? Childish." Wei Yangzi smiled coldly. The aura in his body suddenly tightened. Immediately after, he struck with his palm. A beam of white light shot out. It looked inconspicuous, but it could pass through the spirit wheel space of the two and attack Elder Li. In the next moment, the white light flew past. It directly pierced through Elder Li's chest and went through his heart. In the air, blood spurted out. "Elder Li!" Nietian almost roared at the shocking scene that had just unfolded. He could feel that Elder Li's vitality was rapidly fading. This time, it was not a doppelganger. Elder Li was really going to die. Elder Li had used a doppelganger to trick Mon Ninger from the land of bloody massacre. However, he could not trick Wei Yangzi from the Heaven Burial Association. With such strength, you still want to save people? You're asking for death. Wei Yangzi's cold voice was filled with mockery and contempt. On Elder Li's chest, a bloody hole suddenly expanded. Dripping blood gushed out. Elder Li's eyes were filled with shock. In the blink of an eye, he lost all his vitality. Chapter 381. In midair, Elder Li's body fell straight down and drew a silent arc across the sky. Just as his body was about to hit the ground, a figure suddenly appeared and caught him. Nietian looked over and saw that the person who caught Elder Li was Rui Qinyu. At this moment, Rui Qinyu was as calm as a block of ice. She didn't make a move, didn't scream, and didn't even have any expression on her face. However, at a certain moment, when she saw the skinny face in front of her clearly, 2 streams of hot tears rolled down her cheeks silently. Originally, Rui Qinyu thought that her heart was as calm as still water. However, at the moment when Elder Li really lost his life, she felt an uncontrollable pain in her heart. She had no family left, and Elder Li was her last family member. It was a pity that even this last family member had to die in front of her. She couldn't do anything about it. Why was the heavens so unfair to her that they had to take away her last family member? Rui Qinyu's figure floated down, and she placed Elder Li's body aside. She raised her hand and gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. She then looked at Elder Li for the last time with a determined look. "No, I want revenge." At some point, she roared in her heart. However, her cold rationality won over her impulsive emotions. Rui Qinyu only raised her head and looked at Wei Yangzi in the sky. 9-colored pupils. She would remember this face forever. Wei Yangzi was a powerhouse at the spirit wheel stage. When he spread out his divine sense, nothing within a 10,000-meter radius could escape his senses. Naturally, he knew that Rui Qinyu was looking at him, but he didn't care about it at all. At this moment, Rui Qinyu was like an ant to him. He could crush her to death with just a slight movement of his finger. The anger of an ant naturally couldn't enter the eyes of a divine elephant. Wei Yangzi turned to look at Nietian. The latter's talent and strength were too strange. If he were to live, he would definitely become a huge threat. It was better to get rid of him. Duanmu's white figure flashed and arrived beside Nietian. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and he could not hide the fear on his face. Even he was injured by a casual strike from Wei Yangzi, and this obviously showed how shocking the latter's strength was. At this moment, everyone was looking at the sky. Their eyes were not filled with shock, but with horror. It was unbelievable that Wei Yangzi dared to send Zhao Kuo flying with a single palm strike. One had to know that the latter was the commander of the Dan Marshall Hall. Also, his strength allowed him to instantly kill a warrior at the Spirit Wheel realm. Even the dignified palace master of the Qingquan Palace, Duanmu Bai, one of the top figures in the Nanshan region, was beaten to the point of vomiting blood. Such strength was too terrifying. The experts of the major forces hiding in the crowd were all terrified. No one knew where Wei Yangzi came from. In any case, he was just this powerful and unreasonable. Wei Yangzi's eyes flickered. He glanced at Duanmu and said coldly, "Do you want to die?" Duanmu Bai's face was pale at this moment, and he no longer had the demeanor of a palace master. Nie Tian put one hand on Duanmu Bai's shoulder, and his eyes were filled with determination. He said indifferently, "Palace Master Duanmu, you may step down." This. Duanmu Bai was slightly stunned, and he was at a loss. It was not that he didn't want to save people, but he was really no match for Wei Yangzi. Who knew where this guy came from? And how could his strength be so terrifying? Duanmu Bai was at the 5th tier of the Spirit Wheel. He speculated that Wei Yangzi's strength was definitely above the 6th tier, or even the 7th tier. With such strength, he could definitely stand at the top of the 4 regions. Even the inner sect elders of the 4 major clans might not have such strength. Nie Tian took a step forward. There was no fear in his eyes, but determination and decisiveness. Wei Yangzi noticed the confidence in Nie Tian's eyes, and he couldn't help but frown. He did not expect that even someone as powerful as him would not be able to make the young man in front of him feel fear. To be able to remain so calm in the face of an enemy far stronger than oneself, it was impossible to do so without great willpower. The youth in front of him made Wei Yangzi think of 2 words, hidden dragon. Since that's the case, all the more I can't let you live. Wei Yangzi suppressed the shock in his heart and spoke calmly. This kind of calm attitude before killing was terrifying. Boom! Right at this moment, the earth suddenly shook inexplicably, emitting a violent roar. Nie Tian seemed to notice something and frowned slightly. Wei Yangzi was also stunned for a moment. He looked at the ground with a strange expression. A trace of panic actually appeared on his face that was as calm as an ancient well. Everyone on the ground was even more shocked. They looked at each other, wondering if it was just an illusion. Boom! Following that, the earth shook violently again. Following that, at the center of the dojo, a mound of earth with a circumference of over 10 meters suddenly appeared, as if there was a terrifying force trying to dig its way out from the ground. Nie Tian spread his divine sense and discovered that the dragon chi in the air wasn't coming from Little 3. Instead, it was converging on the ground and pouring into the ground, as if there was a vortex under the ground that was absorbing the dragon chi. Ancient dragon soul. In the next moment, Nie Tian immediately thought of something, and his face turned pale. Squeak! At the same time, the 9 extremities chaos in the chaotic original coffin suddenly woke up and let out an excited cry. Master, you're saying that the ancient dragon soul in the underground dragon bloodstone mine is about to be born. The corpse demon lord's tiny body shook a little and said with a sharp voice, "Yes." Nie Tian nodded heavily. He was very sure that the dragon soul in the dragon bloodstone mine was about to be born. The venue of the dragon martial meet was not far from the dragon bloodstone mine. It was only a few thousand meters away. After an ancient divine dragon died, its body would decay, but its dragon chi and dragon soul would not disappear. The dragon chi and blood essence would fuse into the underground rocks and form the dragon bloodstone, and the dragon soul would fall into a deep slumber near the dragon bloodstone. Nie Tian guessed that the dragon chi released from the heaven-defying dragon soul in the sky must have stimulated the ancient dragon soul, causing it to wake up from its slumber. The ancient dragon soul was a true dragon soul. It was not something that the dragon soul produced by the blade dragon arm with only 2 azure dragon seals unlocked could compare to. Even after sleeping for tens of thousands of years, the ancient dragon's soul still possessed immeasurable strength. Boom! Boom! Following that, the ground shook violently, and small mounds of earth were lifted up one after another. Immediately, huge cracks appeared on the ground, as if the entire ground was about to collapse. The martial artists on the ground sensed the danger and began to flee in panic. Wei Yangzi looked at Duanmu Bai and Nie Tian with a cold gaze. He frowned and pondered if he should still attack Nie Tian. If he attacked now, with Duanmu Bai's strength, he should be able to delay him for a while. Wei Yangzi didn't know how terrifying the thing under the ground was, and he couldn't help but have doubts. Just when Wei Yangzi was hesitating, the ground shook even more violently. Rumble! The cracks on the ground became bigger and bigger. Rocks fell from the ground, and the surrounding terrain was forcefully torn apart. Trees hundreds of meters away were uprooted. Chapter 382. This is... Looking at the giant golden claw on the ground, and yet Tian couldn't help but gulp. Two words flashed through his mind. Golden Dragon. Golden Dragon, the legendary king of the ancient dragon clan. Previously, Nie Tian knew that the Dragon Bloodstone mine was thousands of meters long, so he casually guessed that it was formed after the death of a golden dragon. To his surprise, he guessed right. Bang! At this moment, a loud noise was heard. The trembling ground was finally completely torn apart, and a terrifying figure slowly appeared. The first thing that was revealed was a thick shield-like thing covered in golden scales. It looked to be 50 to 60 meters wide. Although it wasn't tangible, it still gave people a threatening feeling. This should be the dragon armor on the back of a golden dragon. Judging from this, a golden dragon's body length is definitely more than thousands of meters. Nie Tian thought to himself, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He suddenly thought of something and looked towards the high platform in the center of the dojo. Judging from this, a golden dragon's body length is definitely more than thousands of meters. Nie Yuro and the others must have been taken away by Lu Liangkai and the others. Rumble! Rumble! An even louder rumble erupted from the ground, and the entire ground was torn apart. Pieces of the giant body that were shining with golden light were gradually revealed. On the ground, it was a mess, and there were ghostly cries and wolf howls everywhere. The crowd fled in all directions, and the cries of their parents were drowned out by the rumbling of the ground. Wei Yangzi stared at Nie Tian and Duanmu for a long time, and finally chose to give up. Although he really wanted to kill Nie Tian, his own life was more important. The thing underground was too terrifying. Even Wei Yangzi didn't dare to fight against it. Bang! 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 Just as Wei Yangzi turned around and was about to leave, countless giant rocks suddenly burst out from the ground, and all of them shot towards him. Huh? Wei Yangzi frowned slightly. He struck out with his palm, and the powerful palm force shattered the giant rocks that were flying towards him. Humanoid. In the next moment, a huge dragon head broke through the ground, and the sound of a landslide rang out. It was actually speaking. Nie Tian's heart suddenly trembled. Even though he was once the #1 war god in the heaven realm, he had never seen the legendary ancient divine dragon. At this moment, he was just as shocked as everyone else. Although the golden dragon head wasn't physical, the surging draconic aura, the dazzling golden scales, and the huge dragon eyes that were as dazzling as the sun were all vivid and lifelike. As it roared, its overwhelming might seemed to be able to destroy everything. And in the next moment, Nie Tian was completely stunned, because what he thought was the dragon's back was actually the dragon's head. The entire dragon head was several hundred meters long. My God, just a single dragon head was several hundred meters long. How terrifying would it be when its entire body was stretched out? Nie Tian immediately deduced that the body of this ancient dragon soul was definitely more than 3,000 meters long. Boom! The ancient dragon soul's huge body started burrowing out of the ground. In an instant, the mountains collapsed, and huge rocks flew everywhere. It was as if doomsday had arrived. As the ancient dragon soul's huge body shot up into the sky, an endless might spread out, covering the space within a few thousand meters. Tian and Duanmu Bai felt the irresistible pressure and quickly retreated several thousand meters, distancing themselves from the golden dragon. Of course, Wei Yangzi also felt the danger and wanted to escape. However, the golden dragon seemed to have taken a look at him. Its huge body rolled, sweeping up the remnant clouds, and directly flew towards him. Wei Yangzi felt strange. Why was the golden dragon so fixated on him? The moment the dragon appeared, it had already attacked him. Now, it was chasing after him. This was too strange. Despicable human. The golden dragon let out a mighty voice in the sky. Why do you have something that belongs to our dragon tribe? Hand it over. As the galloping sound faded, the golden dragon's body suddenly released countless bolts of golden lightning. Like steel chains, they enveloped Wei Yangzi. Every golden thunderbolt was 1,000 meters long and dozens of meters wide. It covered the sky and covered the earth. It was extremely terrifying. Tian and Duanmu Bai were dumbfounded. This was the first time the golden dragon had revealed its strength, and it was too terrifying. The golden thunderbolts were extremely powerful. Even a spirit wheel realm warrior would be turned into ashes if he came into contact with them. Countless golden thunderbolts formed an encirclement and gradually formed a golden lightning pillar that connected the sky and the earth. It wrapped around Wei Yangzi, who was running away in panic. Wei Yangzi was surrounded by the golden lightning pillar. His expressionless face immediately revealed extreme fear, and his face turned as white as a sheet. In the face of a real death threat, he was far from being as calm as Tian. Despicable human, hand over the thing in your hand. A huge dragon head emerged from the top of the golden lightning pillar. The roar was like thunder exploding beside their ears. Wei Yangzi suppressed the fear in his heart and said with a slightly trembling voice, "Respected Lord Dragon God, I don't have anything on me that belongs to your dragon tribe." Wei Yangzi was about to cry for his parents. He didn't understand what was going on, and he didn't even know what this huge creature that suddenly appeared from the ground was. He only called out to Lord Dragon God based on a guess in his heart. If he really had something on him that belonged to the dragon tribe, he would have called out long ago. He wouldn't have dared to hide it. Cunning human, do you think I'm blind? The thing in your hand clearly belongs to the dragon tribe. The golden dragon's rumbling voice sounded out, and this time it was accompanied by enormous fury. With a pa sound, a weak golden lightning struck Wei Yangzi's face. The latter didn't even have the time to react before a scarlet red bloody mark appeared on his face. Wei Yangzi felt a burning pain on his face. He looked at Dragon Sky in his hand and suddenly understood. The thing that the golden dragon wanted was the dragon saber arm. However, Wei Yangzi couldn't understand. The dragon saber arm was born with Dragon Sky. How could it belong to the dragon tribe? However, this was obviously not the time to reason with the golden dragon. Wei Yangzi didn't hesitate and immediately handed the unconscious Dragon Sky to the golden dragon. Swoosh! The golden dragon's huge whisker lashed out like a steel whip and directly tore Dragon Sky's left arm off. Dragon Sky woke up from the pain and let out a tragic cry. The huge whisker wrapped around the dragon saber arm. The golden dragon stared at it for a long time and said, "This is obviously the arm of a young dragon that isn't even 3 months old. Why is it on a human's arm?" Chapter 383. The golden dragon's majestic voice shook Wei Yangzi's body. He was drenched in cold sweat and his forehead was covered in sweat. Bam! Wei Yangzi made up his mind and slammed his palm on Dragon Sky's chest, shattering the latter's internal organs. Poor Long Haotian. He didn't even know what was going on before he died. Honorable Lord Dragon God, this was all done by this fellow. It has nothing to do with me. I'll help Lord Dragon God kill him now to avenge the death of the young dragon. Please don't punish me, Lord Dragon God. Yangzi's face was solemn, as if he was putting family before righteousness. The colossal golden dragon's whiskers fluttered as it stuffed the blade-like arm into its mouth. Its huge head swayed for a moment, and then it said with a very satisfied expression, "Human, I am very satisfied with your performance. You may leave now." After that, the golden lightning pillar disappeared. Thank you, Lord Dragon God. Wei Yangzi's face lit up. He thought to himself, this stupid dragon is too stupid. How could he believe such words? Wei Yangzi looked at Nie Tian and Duanmu Bai regretfully. He didn't dare to stay any longer and disappeared in a flash. Off to the side, Nie Tian and Duanmu Bai were dumbfounded. After the golden colossal dragon confirmed that Wei Yangzi had left, its enormous dragon whiskers actually twirled complacently in the air, and it seemed as if it had drawn out a golden flower. It took out the blade dragon arm and placed it before its enormous eyes to carefully size it up, and it actually couldn't help but chuckle. Ha ha! I, Dishi, am really the smartest dragon in the golden colossal dragon clan. That stupid human was really too stupid. Did he really think I didn't know? This is not the arm of a young dragon. It's one of the 4 mysterious arms, the blade dragon arm. Ha ha! Looks like the heavens have been kind to me, allowing me to get the legendary blade dragon arm as soon as I was born. Duanmu Bai and Nie Tian looked at each other speechlessly. The giant golden dragon had actually tricked Wei Yangzi. Duanmu Bai was stunned on the spot, unable to speak for a long time. Nie Tian's lips curled into a smile as he thought to himself, this guy tricked the blade dragon arm blade from Wei Yangzi. Maybe I could trick it back. Although this golden WYRM considered itself to be extremely intelligent, its intelligence was really not to be complimented based on its current performance. Wei Yangzi was afraid of its strength. Otherwise, even if it was really smart, it wouldn't have been able to trick the blade dragon arm. Ha ha! It was rumored that the saber dragon arm could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and produce the purest dragon chi. With the saber dragon arm, I will be able to form a new body in 1,000 years at most. By then, I will be able to carry out the task assigned to me by His Majesty Dragon Emperor. The golden colossal dragon, Di Shi, laughed heartily. His enormous draconic body emanated a majestic draconic aura, causing even the heavens and the earth to tremble. 1,000 years. Hearing Di Shi's words, Nie Tian's expression stiffened. But when he thought about it, he understood. It was rumored that the primordial dragon clan had extremely long lifespans. Ordinary dragons could live for more than 10,000 years. As the king of the dragon clan, the golden WIRM clan could live for more than 50,000 years. Compared to a 50,000-year lifespan, 1,000 years was indeed not a very long time. Nie Tian could basically tell that this golden WIRM had just woken up and was still in a daze. He definitely didn't know that the dragon clan had been completely extinct. Lord Di Shi. Nie Tian thought for a moment and walked forward. The golden WIRM, Di Shi's pupils, which were like golden fireballs, suddenly enlarged. He actually didn't notice the presence of Nie Tian and Duanmu Bai. When Duanmu Bai saw Nie Tian walk over, he was scared silly. He shouted in his heart, "Are you crazy?" The golden WRM's dragon whiskers froze in the air for a moment. The huge dragon head showed a strange expression and said, "Human, how do you know my name?" Nie Tian's face darkened. He said, "Lord D, she was talking to himself just now. My ears weren't listening, so I heard your name." Di Shi's huge dragon head nodded and his voice shook. "Human, your ears aren't listening, but they're too sensitive. This is not good for you, because there are some things that can't be heard and can't be known." Nie Tian was completely speechless. This guy actually knew how to teach people. Lord Di Shi is right. With a faint smile, Nie Tian asked, "Lord Di Shi, where are you going with the blade dragon arm? This is my business. Why should I tell you?" Di Shi's voice was filled with caution. Nie Tian frowned slightly. After a pause, he said directly, "Lord Di Shi, do you know how many years have passed since you fell?" "I have fallen." Di Shi's huge eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light. Immediately, his dragon head turned and began to observe the surrounding environment. In his eyes, the passage of hundreds of thousands of years was gradually reflected. Gradually, the golden WRMD, she fell into great pain. Nie Tian nodded and murmured. It seems that he remembered everything. "No, impossible." After a long time, the golden WIRM suddenly roared. Its huge body rolled up and rushed into the sky like a golden lightning. Dishi don't believe it. I don't believe that the great dragon race will perish. Dishi's mighty voice resounded between heaven and earth. The dragon's roar was sorrowful and lofty. Nyetian City Lord, this dragon. Duanmu Bai walked to Nyetian's side and looked at the golden WIRM that was rolling in the sky. His face was filled with shock. Everything that happened today was far beyond Duanmu Bai's understanding. Before this, he didn't even believe that the ancient dragon race really existed. After all, it was a legend from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Nyetian frowned. This was the first time he saw a real dragon, and he didn't expect it to be such a strange dragon. It could only be said that Dishi was a golden WIRM with complicated emotions. Nyetian City Lord, this dragon won't kill itself if it continues to cause trouble, right? Duanmu Bai couldn't help but frown when he saw the golden WIRM was extremely angry. The dragon's body kept rolling, and the dragon's aura spread in all directions. Let it calm down first, Nyetian said with a frown. Dishi was too powerful. Even if Nyetian wanted to stop it, it was impossible. After an unknown period of time, the roar in the sky gradually weakened. After a while, Dishi's figure appeared again. The huge dragon's head carried a sorrowful emotion. Lord Dishi, Nyetian said calmly. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that Dishi was sizing him up, so he stopped. Dishi stared at Nyetian with his huge eyes, as if he was making a big decision. Human, I want to make a deal with you. Finally, Dishi seemed to have made a decision and spoke in a deep voice. Chapter 384. A Deal. Seeing Dishi's serious expression, Nyetian couldn't help but show his interest. She seemed to recall many things. He didn't speak, but a booming voice was transmitted into Nyetian's mind. My name is Dishi, the war god of the Golden Dragon Clan. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Dragon Clan suffered a world-ending catastrophe. An extremely powerful enemy appeared and wanted to exterminate the entire Dragon Clan. In order to survive, all the Dragon Clan united under the call of the Golden Dragon Emperor to fight against the powerful enemy. Unfortunately, the enemy we faced was too powerful. Even though all the Dragon Clan united, we still couldn't defeat it. In the end, all the Dragon Clan was forced to hide in the sea-leaving dragon abyss. But our enemy still pursued us, intending to destroy the sea-leaving dragon abyss and cut off the last chance of survival for the Dragon Clan. During the crisis, I followed the Dragon Emperor's order to find something that could save the Dragon Clan from extinction. Who knew that I would be ambushed by the enemy halfway? Although I was brave, the enemy was too powerful. In the end, after I killed the enemy, the dragon chi in my body was exhausted, and I died here. I didn't expect that after hundreds of thousands of years, I could see the light of day again. Unfortunately, I couldn't complete the task given to me by the Dragon Emperor. I let down the Dragon Emperor, and I let down the people of the Dragon Clan. Dishi, am the center of the Dragon Clan. She said everything, and in the end, he was very emotional. Although he didn't make a sound, 2 golden lights overflowed from his huge dragon eyes, like rolling hot tears, and the dragon chi in the air spread with indescribable sorrow. Hearing Dishi's passionate words, Nyetian was moved. He knew that the ancient Dragon Clan was an existence that surpassed the 9th-grade spirit beasts. Among the humans, only the peak of the Sky Emperor Realm warriors, or even the legendary God Realm warriors, could fight against the Dragon Clan. What kind of powerful enemy did the Dragon Clan encounter that actually destroyed all the Dragon Clan? Although Dishi's words were simple and didn't explain the situation in detail, in Nyetian's heart, an extremely tragic picture of the Dragon Clan's destruction was outlined. No matter who the powerful enemy was, it was definitely not something that the current Nyetian could imagine. Although the current she had been dead for hundreds of thousands of years after the awakening of the dragon's soul, his strength was still extraordinary. He was definitely comparable to a Heaven Evolution Realm martial artist, or even a Heaven Realm martial artist. Yet Tian reckoned that even the current Tang How might not have reached the heavenly evolution state, or perhaps he had barely reached it. If a dragon soul that had just awakened after hundreds of thousands of years had the strength of a heavenly evolution state, then how terrifying would a golden dragon be when it was at its peak? It was definitely comparable to a human celestial state martial artist. An ordinary golden giant dragon could grow to about 1,000 meters in length when it reached adulthood. She claimed to be the war god of the golden dragons, so it was normal for him to be much larger than the average golden dragon. The dragon race was so terrifying, yet they were exterminated by someone. Tian simply could not imagine how terrifying that person was. He was definitely an existence that could overturn the heavens and overturn the seas with a flip of his hand. Lord Shi, you failed to complete His Majesty the Dragon Emperor's task, so you want me to help you find a thing that can save a dragon race, right? Shi was in sorrow, and his expression was gloomy, but Tian had already understood what he meant, so he said, "Yes." Shi's voice came again. Still, only Tian could hear it. He said, "I have already fallen, and I am still in a remnant soul state. I cannot leave the land of the fallen. Even if I have a blade dragon arm, it is too weak. The dragon chi that it can produce is not enough for me to survive." Tian nodded slightly, but he was silent in his heart. During the time that Shi had gone crazy, who knew how much dragon chi had been wasted for no reason? The blade dragon arm had only opened the second azure dragon seal, and the accumulated dragon chi for several years had only allowed the dragon sky to condense a heaven-defying dragon soul. Compared to the real golden giant dragon soul, it was like the difference between a loach and a dragon, or a sparrow and a phoenix. The dragon soul could not leave the land of the fallen too far, or its soul would dissipate. If Shi left at this time, he would definitely disappear in half a month at most. Even with the blade dragon arm, it was impossible for him to survive a month. Human. At this time, Shi retracted his gaze from the sky and looked at Tian again. His face was solemn, and his voice sounded, "Are you willing to complete the task that His Majesty the Dragon Emperor entrusted to me?" Receiving Shi's gaze, Tian's heart trembled inexplicably, but he immediately calmed down and asked, "Lord Shi, the Dragon Clan has already been destroyed. Even if we find a thing that can save the Dragon Clan from extinction, is it still useful?" "It's useful, of course it's useful." Shi's expression changed, and he said excitedly, "When I left, His Majesty the Dragon Emperor once told me that not only can that thing save the Dragon Clan from extinction, but it can still play a role after the Dragon Clan is destroyed." "Oh." Tian was slightly stunned, and he was puzzled. Could it be that that thing could resurrect the dead divine dragon? He composed himself and said, "May I ask Lord Shi, what exactly are you looking for?" Shi kept saying, that thing, so Tian still did not know what he was looking for. However, judging from Shi's expression, that thing might be a taboo of the Dragon Clan, or something that the Dragon Clan revered and looked up to, and could not mention casually. Shi's expression immediately became complicated, and his eyes that were like the sun and moon stared at Tian again. After a long time, he finally confirmed something and said, "What His Majesty the Dragon Emperor wants me to find is the Dragon Spring Vein." Dragon Spring Vein? Tian was slightly stunned. He had never heard of this thing, but seeing Shi's solemn and sacred face, he guessed that it must be something important to the Dragon Clan. Shi calmed down and continued, "The Dragon Spring is the birthplace of my Dragon Clan. When the Dragon Clan reached its peak, the Dragon Spring was respected as the heaven and earth holy spring. But later on, the Dragon Clan began an endless civil war. The great Golden Dragon Clan and the ruthless, demonic, armored Black Dragon Clan, in order to fight for the title of Dragon King, launched a war that lasted for tens of thousands of years. In the end, the Golden Dragon Clan won, but they also paid a terrible price. And the most terrifying thing was yet to come. The Dragon Spring vein that gave birth to the Dragon Spring was actually stolen by someone. The Dragon Spring vein was lost, and the Dragon Spring began to dry up. the greatest dragon clan began to decline. Until 10,000 years later, the dragon spring completely disappeared, and the dragon clan walked on the brink of destruction. Later on, powerful enemies invaded, and the dragon clan was finally wiped out. Dishi's expression was gloomy, and there was a hint of sorrow in his words. He was indeed a golden dragon with complicated emotions. Chapter 385. Dishi and Nietian both had different emotions. One was remorseful, and the other was sighing. After a while, both of them calmed down a lot. Nietian looked at Dishi with a strange expression on his face. He was a more pragmatic person. He wouldn't help Dishi for free just because he told a good story. Moreover, even she couldn't find the dragon's spring vein. How could it be easy to find? He smiled and said, "Lord Dishi, is it really appropriate for you to entrust such an important task to me?" Dishi didn't immediately answer Nietian. Instead, he stared at the latter with a calm expression. Nietian was scared by the two huge dragon eyes. He frowned and said, "Besides, even if I promise you now, I might not really do it." "No." Dishi's voice sounded. This time, he blurted out, "As long as you promise me, you will definitely do it." "Oh." Nietian was slightly stunned. He thought to himself, "This guy is quite confident in me." Dishi continued, "Your eyes are different from ordinary humans." "What's different?" Nietian was stunned. This guy just stared at him for a long time. Was he looking at his eyes? Dishi said, "Ordinary humans are in awe and fear when they see our great dragon race. But in your eyes, there is no fear. There is only extreme determination and confidence. Therefore, you are destined to become a great human, and a great human will never break his promise." Seeing Dishi's solemn face, Nietian was speechless for a moment. He couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. This old dragon has a good eye. What he said sounds reasonable. Everyone liked compliments. Even Nietian wasn't surprised, especially when this compliment came from an ancient divine dragon. It would be strange if he wasn't proud. However, Dishi was right. Nietian was indeed a man of his word. He had a principle. He would never make a promise easily. But once he made a promise, he must keep it. If he couldn't keep it, he must keep it. After thinking calmly for a moment, Nietian said directly, "Lord Dishi, I won't help you for nothing. If you want me to promise you, you must give me good benefits." Since Dishi wanted something from him, Nietian didn't care too much. He just wanted the blade dragon arm. This wasn't too much. Well, very good. Nietian's condition didn't make Dishi angry. Instead, he nodded slightly in approval. If a person didn't want any benefits and directly agreed to save your people, that would be a real problem. Since Nietian had made such a request, it meant that he really saw this as a fair trade and not a scam. Dishi's dragon whiskers fluttered, and the blade dragon arm appeared in front of Nietian. It was completely intact, and even more powerful than when it had been on Long Haotian's body. Dishi said, "I have already repaired the damage to the blade dragon arm. Moreover, I have injected my dragon chi into it, making it even more powerful." "Yeah." Nietian nodded heavily, and his eyes shone with a green light. The saber dragon arm was one of the legendary 4 great profound arms. At this moment, it was right in front of him. How could Nietian not be excited? Duanmu Bai, who was at the side, was completely stunned. He thought to himself in bewilderment, "What is Nietian saying to this old dragon? It seems like they're making a deal. My power was obviously stronger than Nietian's, but this old dragon chose to trade with him instead of me. His eyesight isn't that great." Duanmu glanced at Nietian and felt a sense of defeat. Dishi chose to make a deal with Nietian instead of Duanmu Bai. This undoubtedly showed that, in Dishi's eyes, Nietian was more powerful than Duanmu Bai. Nietian City Lord is my son's teacher. It's normal for him to be more powerful than me. Duanmu Bai glanced at Nietian again and thought so. Only then did he feel much better. Nietian didn't pay attention to Duanmu Bai at all. His eyes were on the saber dragon arm. She saw Nietian's great desire for the saber dragon arm. He directly threw the saber dragon arm to Nietian and said, as long as you promise to help me complete the mission of His Majesty Dragon Emperor and find the lost dragon spring vein. The saber dragon arm is yours." The moment Nyetian took the saber dragon arm, he immediately felt endless power. The terrifying aura hidden in it made him shocked. Even Little Nine and Corpse, Demon Monarch, in his body were stunned at this moment. The saber dragon arm was one of the legendary 4 great profound arms. It had the terrifying power to split the heavens and earth. Taking a deep breath, Nyetian calmed himself down. He looked at Di Shi, and the corners of his mouth curled up. This expression was clearly saying that a saber dragon arm was not enough for him to agree to Di Shi's request. Searching for the lost dragon's spring vein might seem simple, but the difficulty involved was unimaginably high. The dragon spring vein had been lost for hundreds of thousands of years. Who knew where it was now? Moreover, since the dragon spring vein was a divine object that could give birth to dragon springs, its value was naturally immeasurable. As long as there was a dragon spring vein, the legendary dragon spring could be restored. And the dragon spring was the birthplace of the dragon clan. This was undoubtedly a super major event that saved the entire dragon clan. Therefore, it was absolutely impossible to satisfy Nyetian's appetite with just a saber dragon arm. She noticed the strange look in Nyetian's eyes, as if he had seen through something. His booming voice sounded again. "Human, you are indeed a trustworthy person. If you have any other conditions, feel free to state them. Even if you want to fuse with me, I will definitely cooperate with you." Fusing with the ancient dragon soul. Nyetian had really thought about this before, but at that time, he had made a wrong judgment about the strength of the ancient dragon soul. Now that he knew Di Shi's true strength, he had long dispelled this idea. Even Little Nine, who had been clamoring to eat the dragon soul, did not make any noise. However, if Di Shi was really willing to cooperate, then it was really possible for Nyetian to fuse with the dragon soul. Once he fused with the dragon soul, Nyetian's strength would definitely improve qualitatively. If he went into seclusion for a few more months and refined the power of the dragon soul, he would probably be able to rise to the true element realm, or even the high level of the true element realm. It had to be said that such a proposal was very tempting to Nyetian. After thinking about it carefully and seriously, Nyetian finally gave up on the idea of fusing with the dragon soul. On one hand, his current strength was too weak. Even if Di Shi really cooperated, fusing with the dragon soul would be a very dangerous thing, so he was not willing to risk his life. On the other hand, Di Shi was more important to Nyetian. After a pause, Nyetian smiled and said, "Lord Di Shi, if you want me to agree, I have another condition." "Speak." Di Shi's voice suddenly became excited. Chapter 386. Let the golden dragon soul be a guard for Heaven Luo City. This was Nyetian's second condition. The current Nyetian had offended too many people. Nanshan region's top force, God Transformation Sect, Sumi Lingdu's various aristocratic families, the red-clothed elder of the Alchemist Guild, the #1 assassin organization in the 3,000 Small Worlds, Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, and the mysterious Heaven Burial Association. Any one of these forces was enough to completely destroy Heaven Luo City in the blink of an eye. Therefore, if there was no Di Shi, Nyetian planned to let Gu Yi think of a way to put Heaven Luo City under Danwu City, become a private city of the Alchemist Guild, and borrow the power of the Alchemist Guild to protect Heaven Luo City. Anyway, he still had several 9th-tier pill recipes in his hands. Even the president of the Alchemist Guild, Meng Fanshun, would probably be tempted by the 9th-tier pill recipes. But now that there was a behemoth like Di Shi, Nyetian's thoughts became active. If he could have an ancient golden dragon soul to guard Heaven Luo City, then not to mention these forces, even if the forces of the upper world came down, they might not be able to touch Heaven Luo City at all. Anyway, Di Shi was currently in the form of a dragon soul and couldn't leave Heaven Luo Mountain. It was perfect to be a guard for Heaven Luo City. As long as there was Di Shi guarding, Heaven Luo City would definitely be the unmoving city of the 3,000 Small Worlds. Perhaps even the core city of the 3,000 Small Worlds, Sumi Lingdu, was not as safe as Heaven Luo City. Guard Heaven Luo City. Dishi's voice was surprised, and then his huge dragon head swayed, looking at the small city behind him. In Dishi's eyes, the Heaven Luo City under his feet was only the size of a palm. As long as he casually stepped on it, the entire Heaven Luo City would become a city of ruins. Heaven Luo City is my city. But recently there have been some troubles, and I provoked some rather troublesome enemies, so Nye Tian was a little embarrassed and wanted to explain. Good, I promise you. Without waiting for Nye Tian to finish his explanation, Dishi said in an extremely solemn tone, I, Dishi, swear on the holiest dragon spring that as long as I, Dishi, am here, Tian Luo City will never be destroyed. Nye Tian was stunned. He thought to himself, this old dragon is really awesome. He actually swore on the dragon spring vein. Very good. The dragon spring vein was a sacred item of the dragon race. Dishi's oath was naturally very safe. All right. At this moment, Nye Tian no longer hesitated. He nodded heavily and said, I, Nye Tian, swear by the honor of the war god that I will definitely find the lost dragon spring vein for Dishi. Since Dishi was so impressive, Nye Tian naturally had to express his gratitude. The honor of the god of war. Dishi was slightly stunned, and the way he looked at Nye Tian was a little strange. Nye Tian didn't explain anything. He directly said, Lord Dishi, don't worry. I, Nye Tian, will definitely fulfill the promise I made, unless my body and soul are destroyed. Good. Dishi was slightly moved. He said in a clear voice, let's clap hands as an oath. With that, Dishi raised a huge dragon claw that was comparable to a mountain. Nye Tian looked at the dragon claw that was hundreds of meters in radius in front of him. His face darkened. Immediately after, he slapped his palm out, and a huge palm print appeared in the air, hitting the dragon claw, making a deafening sound. Duan Mubai saw that the human and the dragon clapped hands for no reason, his face dripping with sweat. Dishi was slightly excited. He suddenly said, Human, your name is Nye Tian? Very good. I am willing to become brothers with you. Are you willing? Nye Tian was speechless. He thought to himself, I've only heard of people becoming sworn brothers of the opposite sex, but I've never heard of anyone becoming sworn brothers with a golden dragon. Is this really a good thing? Human, are you looking down on me? I am the god of war of the greatest golden dragon clan. Dishi saw Nye Tian's reaction. He was instantly enraged. Nye Tian hurriedly said, Big brother Dishi, you misunderstood. How can I look down on the great golden dragon? Good. Before Nye Tian finished speaking, Dishi laughed loudly. His roar shook the 9 heavens. He roared, From today onwards, you and I are brothers. With that, Dishi waved his huge dragon claw over. It seemed that he was going to hug Nye Tian, but seeing Nye Tian's figure, the huge dragon claw stopped in midair and retracted. All right, Nye Tian nodded slightly. He thought to himself, it's not bad to have a golden dragon as a brother. At this time, Dishi suddenly asked, Nye Tian, how old are you? Nye Tian was stunned for a moment, then immediately said, over 200 years old. When Nye Tian died in his previous life, he was over 100 years old. After being reborn for 100 years, he was over 200 years old in total. Dishi's dragon beard stiffened for a moment, then immediately said, You're actually so young. Young? Nye Tian was completely speechless. He shouted in his heart, You call this young? Do I look like an old monster that's 500 to 600 years old? Dishi immediately understood and said, In our dragon clan, 200 years old is just a young dragon that has learned to speak. I didn't expect that in a human, he would be about to become an adult. From this, it can be inferred that the lifespan of a human is only 1,000 years. Nye Tian looked at Dishi's serious expression and was speechless. It was obvious that this guy was not familiar with humans at all. How could ordinary humans live to more than 200 years old? Those who could live to 100 years old were already old and clumsy. How old is Big Brother Dishi? Nye Tian didn't explain and casually asked. When I died, my lifespan was only 23,456 years. Adding the over 300,000 years of sleep, My lifespan is close to 400,000 years. Dishi thought seriously and said. Nyetian swallowed his saliva. This was the real advantage of a race. Humans cultivated desperately. Even if they reached the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm, they would at most have a lifespan of 1,000 years. As for the Golden Dragon, it could easily live for tens of thousands of years. After death, its dragon soul would not be extinguished. It was completely incomparable to humans. If Nyetian knew this, he wouldn't have asked. It was too much of a blow. In this way, I'm much older than you. At this moment, Dishi suddenly understood something and said loudly, from now on, you are my second brother. Second brother? Hearing this title, Nyetian immediately felt uncomfortable and said with a chuckle, Big brother Dishi, you should just call me Nyetian. Second brother. Why did this title make one's imagination run wild? Okay. Dishi's voice was like thunder. Big brother will listen to you. Nyetian's face was filled with black and white lines. This guy was really impolite. At this moment, Duanmu Bai also noticed something. He suddenly found that the relationship between Nyetian and She suddenly became very good. One man and one dragon. In the blink of an eye, they were wearing the same pants. Nyetian. Suddenly, She seemed to think of something. The huge dragon head shook, and then several rays of golden light appeared. The golden light slowly flowed in the air, and after a moment, it condensed together. It was actually a huge golden dragon scale. This is... Nyetian felt the powerful aura inside the golden dragon scale, and his face couldn't help but stiffen. When the golden dragon scale appeared, Dishi's expression became serious. His booming voice was mixed with a trace of trembling as he said, This is the Dragon Emperor's Heart Protection Dragon Scale. Chapter 387. Heart Protecting Dragon Scale. Hearing Dishi's voice, Nyetian stared at the golden dragon scale in the air with his eyes wide open. Not only was Nyetian's eyes wide open, but Little Nine, Corpse Demon King, and Phantom Snow Fox in the chaotic original coffin were also dumbfounded. Squeak! Little Nine let out a squeak, and then there was no sound below it. Duanmu Bai watched from the side. Although he didn't know what the golden dragon scale was, he could feel the terrifying aura contained within it. He was also shocked beyond words. Yes. Seeing Nyetian's reaction, Dishi said, It seems that you know what the heart-protecting dragon scale is. I won't say more. Of course, Nyetian knew what the heart-protecting dragon scale was. The reason why the Divine Dragon clan was so overbearing was because the dragon's body was incomparably hard. Its defense was even more terrifying than a level 9 armor. More terrifyingly, even if the dragon's body was injured, it could heal quickly. It could be called indestructible. However, the Divine Dragon body had a fatal weakness, and that was the dragon's heart in the chest. The dragon's heart was the Divine Dragon's fatal weakness. It was the place where all the dragon's chi and blood gathered. Once it was destroyed, the whole body would be affected. Not only could the dragon not recover, but the dragon's body would also be destroyed. Even the dragon's soul would disappear. Therefore, the heart-protecting dragon scale was the toughest part of the dragon's armor. And this heart-protecting dragon scale was called the dragon's reverse scale because it protected the dragon's weakness. Touching the dragon's reverse scale would mean death. It was precisely this heart-protecting dragon scale. And the dragon scale that Dishi took out was the Golden Dragon Emperor's heart-protecting dragon scale. Its terrifying level was self-evident. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the terrifying aura still made one's heart tremble. The Dragon Emperor gave his heart-protecting dragon scale to Dishi, showing his trust in the latter. Dishi took out the dragon scale, and his expression turned solemn. He said, When the Dragon Emperor gave me the mission, he tore off the heart-protecting dragon scale and gave it to me. Dishi, failed to live up to the trust your majesty had given me. Dishi was extremely moved, and he only calmed down after a long time before he said, Your majesty's heart-protecting dragon scale has lost the nourishment of draconic chi for too long, and it has long since lost its brilliance from all those years ago. Nyetian glanced at the shining golden dragon scales in front of him, and his throat rolled. The Dragon Emperor's heart-protecting dragon scales could still maintain such a radiance even without the nourishment of dragon chi for over 300,000 years. If it was the Dragon Emperor, wouldn't it really be able to compete with the sun and the moon? It would absolutely be a rhythm that blinded everyone's eyes. Nietion. At this time, Emperor Shi looked at Ji Hao seriously and said, "The heart-protecting dragon scale of Dragon Emperor has a special connection with the Dragon Spring. As long as it is within 100 miles of the Dragon Spring, it will definitely have a reaction." Holy shit. She doesn't want to give me the Dragon Emperor's heart-protecting dragon scale, does he? Nietion looked at Shi's expression, and when he heard this, he couldn't help but cry out in his heart. His mind was blown, and he couldn't hear what Shi was saying anymore. His mind started to wander. Oh my god, the Dragon Emperor's heart-protecting dragon scale. Even if the 9 emperors of the Heaven Realm joined hands, it would still be impossible to destroy it. If he could get the heart-protecting dragon scale and refine a set of armor, wouldn't he be invincible in the world? Nietion. Shi saw Nietion was stunned and couldn't help but call out. "Ah!" Nietion recovered his mind and said, "Big brother Shi, please continue." At this time, Shi looked at Nietion strangely and continued, "His Majesty Dragon Emperor set up a contract between me and the heart-protecting dragon scale, so the dragon scale can't leave my side. Once it leaves, it will definitely wither. The Dragon Emperor did this because he was worried that other people would get the heart-protecting dragon scale." Nietion was speechless, and his eyelids drooped. After a long time, it turned out that the heart-protecting dragon scale couldn't leave Shi's side. Nietion rolled his eyes and said with an expression, "Then why did you take it out? Are you sure you're not showing off?" Shi didn't care and continued, "I will now inject a piece of the aura of the heart-protecting dragon scale into your body. This way, even if you don't have the heart-protecting dragon scale, you will still be able to sense the existence of the dragon spring vein." Okay. Nietion was very excited and nodded heavily, comforting himself in his heart. Even if I can't get the heart-protecting dragon scale, getting a bit of dragon scale aura is also good. It can protect me at critical times. Shi activated the heart-protecting dragon scale, and a stream of dragon scale aura flowed into Nietion's body. Immediately, Nietion felt refreshed, as if all the pores on his body had opened up, and there was an indescribable comfort in his body. He even felt a surge of power wandering in his body, cleansing all his yuan meridians and strengthening all his bones. Just a bit of dragon scale aura had such an effect. How terrifying was the entire dragon scale? Damn Dragon Emperor, why did he come up with a bullsh asterisk T-bond? Isn't he just looking for trouble? Nietion reluctantly looked at the heart-protecting dragon scale and cursed Shi's Dragon Emperor in his heart. Shi immediately took back the heart-protecting dragon scale and then said to Nietion, "I am now in the form of a dragon soul. I can't be exposed to the surface for too long. I need to return to the underground immediately." Nietion nodded slightly, still a little reluctant in his heart. Shi said, "Don't worry, with me guarding Heaven Luo City, any foreign enemies who come to invade, I will make sure they won't be able to return." This sentence, Shi didn't say it to Nietion alone, but directly shouted it out. The shocking dragon roar resounded beyond the clouds of the 9 heavens, and it was estimated that half of the Nanshan region could hear the dragon roar. Nietion nodded with satisfaction. His big brother wasn't stupid. This last dragon roar was obviously for others to hear. The deterrent power was definitely much more terrifying than the Chinquan stone. It probably wouldn't take more than half a day for the entire Nanshan region, or even the entire 3,000 small worlds, to spread the news that Heaven Luo City was guarded by an ancient dragon soul. Once such news spread, absolutely no one would dare to covet Heaven Luo City anymore. Nietion, big brother's leaving. Take care. Shi didn't stay any longer. His huge dragon body tumbled up into the sky, and in the next moment he swooped down. When he was about to hit the ground, he immediately turned into a golden light curtain that covered the earth, surged into the ground, and quickly disappeared. Tian looked at the ground and only calmed down after a long time. Duanmu Bai was also stunned for a long time, and then walked to Tian's side, finally unable to suppress the curiosity in his heart, and asked tentatively, Tian City Lord, what did that giant dragon say to you just now? I think you had a good chat. Tian turned to look at Duanmu Bai, smiled strangely, and said, Palace Lord Duanmu, do you really want to know? This. Duanmu Bai was stunned for a moment, but in his mind, he remembered what Dishi had said before. Some things can't be heard and can't be known. Since Dishi said those words to Tian alone, it was, of course, an extremely secretive matter. Thinking of this, Duanmu Bai's face turned pale, and then he smiled awkwardly and said, I'd better not know. Chapter 388. 3 days later, late at night, the moon was on a silver plate, and the sky was filled with stars. Heaven Luo City's City Lord's mansion, in a small courtyard. Two figures stood facing each other, but did not speak. Rui Qinyu, have you thought it through? Do you really want to leave? After a long time, Tian broke the silence. The Dragon Blood martial meet had already ended for 3 days. The Dragon Bloodstones and various rewards had all been distributed, and the martial meet could be considered to have ended satisfactorily. Most of the people had already left Heaven Luo City, and, at the same time, they brought out a piece of news. Heaven Luo City was protected by the ancient golden dragon battle spirit. Once this news was out, the originally restless forces would definitely keep quiet out of fear. This was what Tian wanted to see. In these 3 days, after Tian had arranged some matters, he had been in seclusion to recuperate from his injuries, and at the same time, to stabilize his strength. Today, he had just come out of seclusion, and Rui Qinyu came to find him, and actually came to bid farewell, which was out of Tian's expectations. At this time, Rui Qinyu still had the power of the blood devouring in her body, even with the suppression of the dragon blood. It was only temporary. Once the dragon blood was used up, the power of the blood devouring would definitely cause an even more ferocious backlash. Tian guessed that Elder Li's death must have been a huge blow to Rui Qinyu, so she chose to leave. Speaking of which, Elder Li had died to save Tian, so Rui Qinyu's decision made him feel even more guilty. Rui Qinyu had completely recovered her previous coldness, and the ripples in her heart, because of Elder Li's death, were once again frozen. There was no emotion on her face, and her voice was cold and unapproachable as she said, Thank you for your dragon blood. You don't have to feel guilty about Elder Li's death. I hope that after I leave, you can protect the 3 brothers of the Lei clan. Her tone was calm, without any ripples, but it revealed an irreversible determination. Tian knew that Rui Qinyu had already made up her mind, and there was nothing he could say now. After thinking for a moment, Tian took out a large bottle of dragon blood. This was a dragon blood that Gu he had just sent over, and it was still warm. There were 300 to 400 drops of it. Tian already had 50% of the dragon bloodstones. Adding to the 20% reward he received as the champion of the martial gathering, Rui Qinyu's reward, and the dragon blood from Tong Fu, Tang 13, Duanmu Lu, Aoki Lily, Ding Yi Fun, and the others. All of them were plundered by him. Currently, he only had this big bottle with him. The rest were still in the dragon bloodstone and had yet to be refined. This dragon blood is enough for you to suppress your blood devour power for 1 month, said Tian as he handed it over. Rui Qinyu didn't refuse and reached out to take it. Don't worry, Tian said, nodding. I'll make sure the 3 Lei brothers stay in Heaven Luo City. I won't let anything happen to them. Immediately afterwards, he seemed to recall something and took out a green vine. The green vine was emitting spots of green light. There was also a strange light that emitted an abnormally terrifying aura. Tian smiled bitterly and said, This is one of the 5 rank 9 spiritual weapons we obtained from the Bloody Massacre ancient tomb, Green Phoenix Vine Halo. It is very suitable for you. I originally wanted to let Jean de Bayo seal it before giving it to you, but it seems like there is no time to seal it now. Rui Qinyu nodded and reached out to take it. Tian warned, Green Phoenix Vine Halo is a rank 9 Emperor weapon. The Emperor Light is very strong. Do not use it unless you have no other choice. Also, rank 9 Emperor weapons attract attention easily. Do not expose it. I understand. Rui Qinyu replied calmly. Nie Tian nodded. He didn't know what to say next. He knew that Rui Qinyu must be in a hurry to go out and train. Staying in Tianluo City to live a comfortable life was obviously not what she wanted. Next, Rui Qinyu didn't leave in a hurry. Instead, she stood with Nie Tian. The two of them stood side by side under the moonlight. The two shadows didn't move, didn't speak, and didn't move. They just stood there quietly. After a while, Rui Qinyu turned around and left. Under the moonlight, Nie Tian watched as the figure got further and further away from him and gradually disappeared. There was an inexplicable sense of loss in his heart. Corpse Luo, is it really the right choice for her to leave now? When Rui Qinyu's aura completely disappeared, Nie Tian murmured. Although it looked like he was asking Corpse Luo Demon Lord, he was actually asking himself. Master! Corpse Luo Demon Lord knew that Nie Tian was worried. He stroked his beard and said with a serious face, Lady Qinyu is a person with the 9-color pupils. In the words of our demon clan's high priest, she has the heavenly fate. She will definitely be fine. I hope so. Nie Tian smiled bitterly. He then glanced at Corpse Luo Demon Lord in the chaotic original coffin and thought to himself, is this little guy really the Demon Lord who devoured hundreds of thousands of martial artists' origin spirits? As the saying goes, one is marked by the company one keeps. One walks the path of the person one follows. Corpse Luo Demon Lord had been influenced by Nie Tian during this period of time when he followed Nie Tian. He was no longer as violent as before. Gao Han went to Moyang City to pick up the Nie clan. He should be back tomorrow. Ninth sister will definitely be happy to see her family. Nie Tian thought of something that was worth celebrating, and a smile finally appeared on his face. He had offended many forces. It was hard to guarantee that some forces would inquire about his origin and then go to Moyang City to make things difficult for the Nie clan. To be on the safe side, Nie Tian decided to move the entire Nie clan to Tianluo City. Tianluo City was now guarded by Emperor Shi. No force dared to act rashly. It was definitely the safest city in the 3,000 small worlds. Nie Tian did not go in person because he was afraid that the target would be too big. Therefore, he only sent Gao Han to carry his handwritten letter. Next, Nie Tian certainly had other plans. More than half a year had passed since the 3-year agreement with Mo Rushi. There were still 2.5 years left. There was still a monstrous genius waiting to duel with Nie Tian and Sumi Lingdu. Nie Tian still remembered that Mou's strength was at true element level 9 half a year ago. He did not know what her strength was now. She should already be at the spirit wheel realm. Even if Nie Tian was in his best state, he would not be able to compete with a spirit wheel realm warrior. Nie Tian could not let Mo Rushi down. Therefore, he had to seize the time to improve his strength. After the Nie clan arrived, Nie Tian prepared to leave Tianluo City and go to the other 3 domains to gain experience. He also planned to bring Duanmu Lu along. As for Zhang Yifeng, he would let him stay in Tianluo City. Next, there would be an alchemist conference in Danwu City. Nie Tian was not interested, but Zhang Yifeng was very interested. He still wanted to shine in the alchemist conference. Nie Yuro, Nie Tian would let her stay in Tianluo City first. It would be too dangerous to let her go out with him. Now, Nie Tian's reputation was too big. The Ling Xian Tian Pavilion's assassins and Heaven Burial Society's people were all waiting for him. He would probably be chased after the moment he left Tianluo City. Nie Tian was also preparing to find a teacher for Nie Yuro during this trip to the other 3 realms. Originally, Nie Tian felt that Rui Qinyu was a good choice, but the latter had already left, so there was no other way. City Lord. Just as Nie Tian was lost in thought, a voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 389. The next day, in the evening, in the city lord's residence, Nie Tian and Duanmu Lu were already sitting on the back of a 4 to 5 meter tall white bird. This bird was called the Sky Feather Eagle, a type of second-rank spirit beast. It had a gentle temperament and was tamed by humans, becoming a commonly seen flying mount. The sky feather eagle was rented by Nie Tian from the Yuan Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, he and Duamu Lu were preparing to leave. They were going to another region of the 3,000 small worlds, the North Sea region. Nie Tian heard from Gu Yi that there was a chaos city in the North Sea region. It was near the number 1 mountain range of the 3,000 small worlds, Hung Duan Tian. Chaos City was one of the dangerous places in the 3,000 small worlds, and its reputation was similar to the land of bloody massacre. Nie Tian wanted to go to such a dangerous place to gain experience. In his previous life, besides fighting, his hobby was to create all kinds of forbidden places in the heaven realm. In this life, this hobby had not changed. More importantly, Gu Yi revealed a secret to Nie Tian. It was rumored that the headquarters of Ling Xiantian Pavilion was in Chaos City, but no one could prove it. Nie Tian was very interested in Chaos City and was heading there now. Big brother Nie Tian, you have to come back soon. Ro will definitely train hard and protect big brother Nie Tian when she grows up. Nie Yuro's big eyes were filled with tears, her face red, and she was indescribably sad. Don't cry, ninth sister. Your face won't look good if you cry. Nie Tian smiled faintly and looked at Qiu Shan and Nie Wenyuan. Qiu Shan nodded heavily and said, Don't worry, mister. Qiu Shan will not let you down. At this time, Qiu Shan's broken left arm had been replaced with the Dragon Blade arm. The day he got the Dragon Blade arm, Nie Tian let Gu Yi attach it to Qiu Shan. Qiu Shan's strength had soared after getting the Dragon Blade arm, and his training speed would also increase rapidly under the influence of the Dragon Blade arm's Dragon Chi. Nie Tian had already instructed Qiu Shan that when he was not around, everything in Heaven Luo City would be decided by the latter. Moreover, he gave Qiu Shan a mission, and that was to guide Nie Yuro in her cultivation. At the moment, Qiu Shan was quite suitable to be Nie Yuro's teacher. At the very least, he could guide her in her cultivation. Patriarch, this old man won't do anything. I'll just live out my remaining years in peace. Nie Wenyuan, the great elder of the Nie family, chuckled. The Nie family had already moved into the Heaven Luo City Lord's mansion last night. Nie Wenyuan looked at Nie Tian with endless emotions. In just half a year, the youth from back then had grown to a height that he could not comprehend. Fortunately, Nie Wenyuan had stood out to support Nie Tian back then. Otherwise, the Nie family would have lost a super powerful family head. Nie Tian nodded. Then, he turned to look at Jean de Bayo, who gave him a heartless smile and said, Boss, I can't fully control my 3,000 divine and devil seals. I can't seal the thing you gave me yet. You can't even seal a few weapons? Is your 3,000 divine and demon seals that trashy? Nie Tian said with a frown. Damn, boss, that's... Jean de Bayo chuckled and swallowed the rest of his words. Nie Tian gave him the remaining 3 rank 9 spiritual weapons and told him to use the 3,000 demon god seals to suppress their power to around rank 5 spiritual weapons. I don't care what it is. Anyway, when I come back, you must do it well. Nie Tian waved his hand and didn't want to talk nonsense with Jean de Bayo. All right. Jean de Bayo's face darkened, but he could only nod. Nie Tian smiled and said, Tell Yifeng that when I come back, I hope to see him as a rank 4 alchemist. Zhang Yifeng was still in seclusion to comprehend the true meaning of alchemy from the purple sun pill cauldron, preparing for the alchemy conference. Because of the dragon blood martial meet, Gu Yi delayed the alchemy conference in Danwu City. Nie Tian estimated that with Zhang Yifeng's current mental strength, after he came out of seclusion, he should be close to a rank 4 alchemist. It wouldn't be too much for him to casually take first place in the alchemy competition. Then, Nie Tian bid farewell to Qiu Ling, and the 3 lay brothers. After a while, the sky feather eagle soared into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Qiu Shan and the others looked at the white line in the sky for a long time before they left. 5 days later, North Sea region, Great Shu Empire. On a straight official road, the figures of 2 youths appeared. These 2 youths were none other than Nie Tian and Duanmu Lu. They had just alighted from a sky feather eagle and were still covered in dust. The Sky Feather Eagle was rented from the Great Yuan Chamber of Commerce. After Nye Tian and Jean de Bao got off, it would fly back to Danwu City on its own. Teacher, are we in the Great Chu Empire of the North Sea region? Duamu Lu was a little dizzy. After 5 days and 5 nights of flying, he was about to vomit. He swore in his heart that he would never ride the Sky Feather Eagle again. The Great Chu Empire was one of the 9 first-rate empires of the North Sea region. It was powerful, and its influence was almost comparable to the Nanshan region's deity transformation sect and Qingquan Palace. However, the real overlord of the North Sea region was the Battle Cloud sect. The Battle Cloud sect was known as the #1 sect in the North Sea region. Among the 9 first-rate empires of the North Sea region, 3 were affiliated with the Battle Cloud sect, while the other 6 were affiliated with the 4 great clans. No matter how strong these first-rate empires were, if they were not affiliated with stronger sects or clans, it would be difficult for them to survive. The Great Chu Empire was one of the 3 great empires affiliated with the Battle Cloud sect. Tan nodded, looking at the city gate not far away, and said, "Ahead is the imperial capital of the Great Chu Empire, Chuyang City." The reason why Nye Tian wanted to land in the Great Chu Empire was because the Great Chu Empire and Chaos City shared a common border. He had heard from Gu Yi that many people who wanted to go to Chaos City would first form a team in the Great Chu Empire's imperial capital, Chuyang City, and then obtain a city pass to enter Chaos City before they could enter. Therefore, the master and disciple decided to stop in Chuyang City first, and then think of a way to enter Chaos City. Teacher, it seems that the Great Chu Empire is an empire affiliated with the Battle Cloud sect. Duamu Lu suddenly thought of something and actually got a little excited. He said, "Maybe we can meet Brother Jean in Chuyang City." Nye Tian nodded slightly. Of course, he knew that the Brother Jean that Duamu Lu mentioned was Zhang Xiaoi. Zhang Xiaoi was the young sect leader of the Battle Cloud sect, and they might really meet him in Chuyang City. After a while, the figures of Nye Tian and Duanmu Lu appeared in Chuyang City. The 2 of them were going to find a tavern to stay at first and have a good night's rest. Then, they would think about how to enter Chaos City. What are you doing? Don't touch me. The 2 of them were walking on the busy street when a scream rang out not far away. The voice was a little sharp, and it was obviously a woman. Nye Tian and Duanmu Lu frowned slightly and looked in the direction of the voice. On the street, 3 well-dressed men surrounded a teenage girl. Their eyes were full of lust, and the corners of their mouths were overflowing with saliva. They actually started to get physical. How dare you? How dare you molest a girl in the street in broad daylight? Do you still have any respect for the law? At this time, someone stood up. It was a handsome young man in his 20s. Bam! As soon as that person's voice fell, one of the 3 well-dressed men struck out with his palm and actually hit the handsome young man's face directly. The latter screamed and fell to the ground with a thud, his eyes filled with terror. The well-dressed man who struck out was arrogant. He pointed at the crowd of onlookers and shouted unscrupulously, "Go to the south and north of the street and find out who the father is. On this street, no woman that I, Lu Jinyuan, fancy can escape." Chapter 390. The well-dressed man called Lu Jinyuan laughed wildly after he finished his rant, completely taking the angry gazes of the crowd as praise. "Let me tell you, bunch of country bumpkins." Another man stood up behind Lu Jinyuan. He was obviously his underling, and he was even crazier than his elder brother. "Do you know the name of this street?" "Jinyuan Street. It's named after my boss. On this street, my boss is the law, the rules, and everything. If anyone is unconvinced, stand up immediately. He's an example." With that, the man kicked the handsome man who had fallen to the ground. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the man spat out a mouthful of blood. The girl who was bullied was about 15 years old. She had a clear and bright appearance, and her facial features were elegant. Her clothes were simple, and it was obvious that she came from an ordinary family. At this moment, she was sobbing, and her face was full of tears. She looked at Lu Jinyuan and the other 2 people in front of her in fear. Some people in the crowd recognized Lu Jinyuan and they whispered to each other. So he's Lu Yuan. He's the brother-in-law of the crown prince. No wonder he's so arrogant. That's right. I heard that a few days ago, he teased General Gu at the crown prince's residence and was beaten up by General Gu. Why did he come out to harm people again? Sigh. Lu Yuan has the crown prince's support. So how would General Gu dare to really beat him up? At most, she's just scaring him. Lu Yuan obviously heard the discussion around him, and his expression changed, especially when he heard the name General Gu. A cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He said fiercely in his heart, Gu Wuyo, it's your fortune that this young master has taken a liking to you. Don't think that just because you're the only female general of the great Chu Empire that you're amazing. If you fall into this young master's hands, I'll make you beg for death. So the General Gu that the crowd was talking about was called Gu Wuyo, and she was a woman. Young Master Lu, I beg you, please spare me. I'll never come to this street again. At this moment, the girl on the ground started sobbing pitifully. Young lady, don't be afraid. This young master has no ill intentions. Look at how tender and fair you are. This young master can't wait to dote on you. How could I bear to hurt you? Lu Yuan's eyes wandered up and down the girl's body without the slightest scruple. As he spoke, he reached out with his perverted hands, scaring the girl into retreating and shrinking into a ball. Little girl, don't be afraid. Follow this young master back to the mansion. I guarantee that you'll wish you were dead. You won't want to leave this young master for the rest of your life. Lu Yuan chuckled, his saliva almost dripping down to his chin. The woman was so scared that she started crying. Her eyes were filled with pain and despair. Her name was Li Jiao Er, and she was just a girl from an ordinary family with no power or influence. Facing this kind of person, even if she was really defiled, she could only endure it. It was estimated that in the end, she would only provoke others. Little girl, let this young master treat you well. Lu Yuan walked over and stretched out his pig trotters, his saliva almost dripping onto the ground. Li Jiao Er folded her arms in front of her chest and closed her eyes in despair. Bang! At this moment, a swift and fierce energy pierced through the air and directly shook off Lu Yuan's pig hands. Swoosh! A figure immediately appeared and blocked in front of Li Jiao Er. Lu Yuan retreated several steps, his face filled with shock. He immediately saw that the person who appeared in front of him was actually a teenager. He smiled coldly and roared. Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you ruin this young master's plans? Are you tired of living? The young master who suddenly appeared was none other than Duanmu Lu. You're the one who doesn't want to live. Duanmu Lu roared angrily. Immediately, his whole body was filled with rage. Although Lu Yuan and the other two were only in their early 20s, they were already martial artists at the 9th level of the all-creation realm. With such strength, they actually dared to bully an ordinary girl on the street. They were worse than pigs and dogs. Duanmu Lu was originally bursting with a sense of justice. How could he endure this kind of situation now? He roared angrily, wishing that he could directly kill the other party. Wait, let me do it. Just as Duanmu Lu was about to make a move, a voice suddenly rang out. Slap, slap, slap. Immediately, a ghost-like figure appeared. 3 palm shadows immediately appeared in the air, followed by 3 crisp slapping sounds. Half of Lu Yuan and the other two's faces immediately became red and swollen. One could actually see the scarlet handprints on their faces. It was clear how solid the slap was. Teacher, Duanmu Lu couldn't help but be stunned when he saw that the person who appeared next to him was none other than Nietian. Nietian smiled faintly and patted Duanmu Lu's shoulder. My good disciple, in the future, it's better to let this old man do this kind of face-slapping thing. I'm more experienced in dealing with these young masters. Duanmu Lu's face darkened. He didn't know what to say. Nietian really liked to play with these self-righteous young masters. These young masters of rich and powerful families always thought that they were high and mighty. Every day, they wanted to be arrogant and show off. They wanted the whole city to smell their fart when they burped. The trick to dealing with these kind of young masters who bullied the weak and feared the strong was one word: face slapping. Slap them until they submitted. Slap them until they were afraid. Slap them until they cried. If that still didn't work, then slap them until they died. The sudden scene caused Lu Yuan and the other two to panic. Their eyes revealed a look of terror at the same time. But when they saw clearly that it was another youth who appeared this time, the terror in their eyes immediately turned into shock. The three of them were all 9th level, all manifestation martial artists. They didn't see clearly how Niet Tian appeared, how he attacked, and how he slapped their faces. It was like seeing a ghost. Who are you?" One of the fellows behind, Lu Yuan, calmed down and gathered his courage to ask. "Slap." Niet Tian didn't say anything. He directly slapped through the air again. The other half of that fellow's face swelled up. This time it was balanced. "You little brat, do you know that I'm—" Lu Yuan was furious. He couldn't bear the fact that a young man suddenly appeared out of nowhere and humiliated him and his men. Unfortunately, he was interrupted before he could finish his sentence. "Slap." Niet Tian slapped Lu Yuan's face again. "Brat, do you know that I slap? You slap. Slap. Slap." The sound of slaps rang out. Lu Yuan's head was slapped crookedly. One side of his face was already a bloody mess. If he continued to be slapped, his facial bones would probably be broken. When Niet Tian stopped, Lu Yuan didn't dare say another word. He looked at Niet Tian with a frightened face. His swollen face was pressed into a thin line, and his eyes were filled with tears. He looked extremely aggrieved. He was probably starting to miss his mother. The surrounding crowd was all stunned. A youth suddenly ran out and, without saying anything, directly slapped them in the face. This scene was really too exciting. Everyone's heart was surging with one word. So King cool.